again. The best of any brightness or sunshine likely to be for the northeastern areas of Scotland, maybe just filtering its way into other parts of northern and eastern England on the odd occasion as well. Most of us dry again, but still just watch out for that drizzle in there. Temperatures down by a degree or so, generally around 12-13 degrees Celsius. Is there any sign of things to change? Well, not really. It is going to be staying pretty cloudy, but as we head towards Wednesday, it will also be turning a little bit milder.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camila Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, it's 12 o'clock on Saturday the 2nd November. Happy November. This is the weekend on GB News. Our top story. In the last hour, Kemi Badenoch has beaten Robert Jenrick in the Tory leadership race, becoming the new leader of the Conservative Party. The 44-year-old received just over 53,000 votes to Mr Jenrick's 41,000 and will take over from Rishi Sunak after months, God, it feels like years, doesn't it, of campaigning. She says it's an enormous honour to be elected leader. We'll have all the latest reaction on that breaking story. We'll also have the fallout from that midweek budget as tech billionaire Elon Musk tells Keir Starmer your tax rate on farmers is wrong. Elsewhere, just 3 days to go until we find out who will be the next president of the United States. The candidates are neck and neck in those key swing states as we approach the crucial day. We get the latest from across the pond. I'm Dawn Neeson and the weekend starts right here. we have a new leader of the Tory party. It's November, it's fireworks night coming up, and the election in America is going ahead very soon. Fireworks on both sides of the pond in politics. But what do you think of it all? What do you make of it? Because this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today. Really simple to get involved in the show. Just go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in the conversation. Keeping me company this hour is literally anyone called Michael or Mike. We have the host of Novara Live, Michael Walker, and broadcaster Mike Parry. See what I did there with the mic thing? But before we get into today's stories, here's the news with someone who's not called Mike or Michael. It's Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie in the GB Newsroom. Now, as you've just been hearing, Kemi Badenoch has been elected as the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick in a ballot of Tory party members. Badenoch takes over from Rishi Sunak as leader of the opposition after winning by 53,806 votes against Jenrick's 41,388 votes. She's the fourth female leader of the party and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and that they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader, Rishi Sunak, for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love. The party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls, aged between 14 and 17, were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. Police believe the attackers know the victim and the girl remains in hospital in critical condition. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed calls for the UK and US to allow his troops to use Western-made long-range weapons. In recent weeks, North Korea has continued to deploy more soldiers to Russia to fight in the war, with Defense Secretary John Healey warning of growing alliances between North Korea and Moscow. Now, more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to the Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Tuesday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. It comes after the 10th death this month was recorded on Wednesday, with the total number of people who have died while making the crossing to 50 this year. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and buildings following the flash floods, as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has declared the area a disaster zone. The Spanish government has now confirmed 205 deaths so far. The drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to the weight loss jabs, such as Ozempic. Causes of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in the thousands. This comes as General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patients' information. And finally, a US Navy veteran has become the first professional Santa Claus in the world to be fitted with a bionic arm. Mike Tyndall of Tennessee had his left arm amputated in 1994 after an automatic wood saw accident. When he received the bionic arm from the Bristol-based company Open Biotics, he said, "When I first saw it, the red design, I knew it was perfect. It matches my Santa suit perfectly." Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Lewis. That Santa story is great, isn't it? It means we get all our presents a bit quicker, hopefully. OK, let's get straight into today's stories, shall we? Breaking news from the last hour. Kemi Badenoch has been crowned the new leader of the Conservative Party. She beat Robert Jenrick in the race amongst Tory members following a lengthy contest, I think it's harsh to say. Ms Badenoch received over 53,000 votes, while Mr Jenrick got 41,000. So that's very close, wasn't it? It comes almost 4 months after the Tories' general election defeat, which triggered former Rishi Sunak's resignation. Now, joining me now is GB News political editor, the wonderful Christopher Hope, to bring us, well, the reaction to this amazing story. Christopher, thank you very much for joining us. Is this the right thing for the Conservative Party?
Right being maybe the right word, Dawn. The party is moved towards the right. I think it's interesting. I think the party has now got the first black woman leading the party, and it's a historic moment for our political system. The fourth woman to lead the Tory party. Last week, or this week just gone, forgive me, we heard about Rachel Reeves being the first female Chancellor for Labour. Well, the Tories are streets ahead in terms of equality with their fourth female leader. Just earlier, after the result, I spoke to Bob Blackman. Now, he is the returning officer, the chairman of the 922 committee. He spoke to me about the turnout, the fact that around 70% of members voted, and if that was an issue.
73%, and a lot of people are saying, oh, the turnout's going to be lower. The most important thing is a 73% turnout, of course, is 12% above the general election turnout. So our members have turned out and voted. That's good news. The Kemi now has to bring everyone together. There will be party members out there that maybe chose not to vote. There may be people that forgot to vote. But there's all sorts of reasons why people didn't vote. The most important thing is we've tried to ensure that everyone that wanted to vote could actually cast their vote. Now we've got to bring the party together, as I say, bring all wings of the party together, united as one team to get rid of this rotten Labour government as fast as possible, and for us to reconnect with the British people, build that trust. And I hope that Kemi's going to assemble a shadow cabinet of all the talents across the party so it can be truly representative of the Conservative voice collectively.
Bob Blackman, now the chair of the 1922 committee, he also revealed a bit of how the party is now going to get round Kemi Badenoch. The problem she's got is only 42 MPs out of 121 voted for in that contest. So, put a different way, 2/3 of the parliamentary party didn't support Kemi Badenoch. Now, he revealed something quite interesting to me in that interview about how the 22 committee has changed the threshold of MPs required to trigger a no-confidence vote in Kemi Badenoch. Here's what I had to say.
The executive agreed last week actually to increase the threshold to 1/3 of the parliamentary party. So that changes the position considerably. And I hope there will be no need for a challenge because we'll be doing so well. I'm pleased to say we're slightly ahead in the opinion polls for the first time for 3 years already. I hope that the momentum will build up so that Kemi can then ride on the crest of that wave.
So to be clear, 1/3 of Tory MPs is nearly double the threshold. You need 1/3 of Tory MPs to trigger a vote of no confidence in the new leader, Kemi Badenoch.
It's more than double, actually. It's 1/3. So it was 15%. It's now 33 1/3 plus 1. So from that perspective, I'm not expecting to see any problems in that regard. Ever, actually. I think we've got a great opportunity now to actually rebuild the trust, as I say, with the British people, get the parliamentary party working as one team. As you quite rightly say, my job is to make sure that the parliamentary party is listened to by Kemi and make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction.
Bob Blackman there telling us exclusively on GB News how the party has changed the rules to stop the chaos we've seen in recent years in the Tory party, to try and make it much harder for MPs to gather and force out their leader. With me now is Charlie Rowley, a former advisor to Michael Gove in the last Tory government and a friend to GB News. Charlie Rowley, what's your take on that, on this increasing the threshold from 15% to 33% to trigger a vote of no confidence in the new leader?
Well, I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's sensible, given the whole history that we've had over the last couple of years, the Conservative Party chopping and changing its leader. That's not been stable for the party. It's not been stable for the country, looking at the internal fighting that has obviously been going on. So I think giving that leader the opportunity now to get all MPs, as you say, that might not have voted for Kemi in the first round, or second or third for that matter, they can all get behind her. The threshold is high to allow her to get on and do the job as being His Majesty's leader of the opposition.
You worked with Kemi Badenoch, didn't you, in the Housing Department, and you found her collegiate, not a bully?
That's right. I mean, look, Kemi is tough, she's robust, she says it how it is, and what she was talking about in her victory speech today was about telling the truth. And I think sometimes that truth for maybe officials and sometimes civil servants, that might be hard to hear, but she'll say it as it is, she'll get what she wants done because she thinks that is right, so she's a conviction politician. She's got to obviously be that conviction politician and sort of bring colleagues with her, but I'm sure she'll do that. But she's a tough cookie, but the right person to lead the party.
What will Labour think about this? I mean, the dynamic next week at Prime Minister's Questions will be fascinating, watching her face Keir Starmer over the dispatch box. The generational shift, she's 42 years old, Keir Starmer is 44, forgive me, Keir Starmer is 62. That's a difference. She's a woman, she's a black woman. I mean, how will Labour react to this? Will they worry about it, or will they not worry about her?
I think they're right to be worried, and I think it was telling in the budget. Rachel Reeves sort of mocked Kemi Badenoch during that budget, which makes you think that Labour are probably more scared of Kemi than they might have been of Rob. But I think, look, during those heated exchanges, Kemi will be punchy, she'll be forthright, she'll ask difficult questions. Keir Starmer's got to be able to answer them clearly, because the public now, I think, are going to be interested in Kemi, because she's she's a new kind of politician, she's younger, she's got the energy, she's certainly very different, and so Labour, I think, will be right to be worried.
And right now, she, I think, has gone to Tory Party HQ to speak to officials. Robert Jenrick's team has gone to the pub, which may be what everyone should do on a Saturday lunchtime. How will he will serve in the shadow cabinet, we're told. Certainly Bob Blackman told me that, who's the 22 chairman.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think Rob might have said that in a previous interview, and I think that's right. But look, Rob and his team have done a fantastic campaign. They've been up and down the country. I mean, to be fair to Rob, I think he did more interviews, not just with GB News, but right across the country, probably more events as well, certainly more set-piece speeches. So his team have done a huge amount, and I think it's right. They deserve a pint if they're having one now down the pub, I can assure you. So we'll have to wait and see. But there's obviously a role for Rob to play. Kemi said that in her victory speech, and I hope the whole party comes together. She might offer a place to all the leadership candidates in her shadow cabinet. I hope he takes it up if there's an offer there, and I hope the party can come together.
Is it a problem that the big beasts are leaving the front line? So Rishi Sunak obviously won't be in the shadow cabinet, we don't expect. We know Jeremy Hunt won't be there, James Cleverly won't be there, unlikely Oliver Dowden's in there. It's going to be quite a new, fresh team, maybe. Is that inexperience going to be a problem for the Tory party?
It could be, but you've got to get the balance between, as you say, those that have got the experience and people that have served in government that know how to take on Labour. I'm sure people like Jeremy Hunt, if he moves to the backbenches, will be able to give the advice to the new Shadow Chancellor and how to tackle Rachel Reeves if she, in that role. But I think, look, fresh faces as well as combined with experience will be something that I think excites people and should get the country at least giving the Conservative Party a second look. And it's only when the country start looking at the party again, are able to listen to the party again, and that's when you might start to see a shift in the polls of people moving back to the Conservatives.
OK, well, Charlie Rowley, thank you. And Charlie's off to watch Newcastle versus Arsenal in the pub. Maybe that's what many should be doing, but also watching Dawn's show today on GB News. But back to you in the studio.
Very much. Yeah, definitely stay watching. And you can listen on the radio as well, by the way. Thank you very much, Christopher. Joining me now is former Conservative Deputy Chairman Jonathan Gullis. Jonathan, are you there? Yes, you are.
Hey,
good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Is this the right decision?
Well, look, obviously, I backed Robert Jenrick in the contest, and I did so because, for me, Rob was answering the central question, which I saw on the doorstep, which was what were we doing on immigration. But to be perfectly fair to Kemi Badenoch, she has made it clear that she's not against leaving the ECHR, for example. She just thinks that there's a longer journey in which you need to roll the map out in order to then get to that point and convince the public that's the way forward. But I think this is a win-win, personally, for the Conservative Party and for the country, because we've got two fantastic people who've run. We've now got a leader in Kemi Badenoch who is very principled, very fierce, very sure about what she wants to see for the future of this country, and not scared to say the difficult things that the broad country totally agree with, but too many in the Westminster bubble shy away from or try and slap down if it doesn't fit their narrative. So I'm very excited about what the future holds under Kemi Badenoch, and I think it's more important now than ever the Conservative Party, from its parliamentarians all the way to its members, unite behind Kemi to reinvigorate and re-energise our membership and then rebuild trust with the British public so we have a chance of winning the next general election, because this is a very critical point for the future of the Conservative Party.
Did get very personal. I mean, during the party conference, we were said, you know, no blue on blue attacks. We're going to be supportive of one another. But over the last few days, they both did get quite personal about one another, didn't they? Did the Tories not learn anything in the run-up to the election? I mean, that was one of the reasons. I mean, they were fighting like cats in a sack. So did they not learn their lessons there?
Well, actually, I haven't. I've seen robust debate back and forth, and I've obviously read briefings in the media from different camps at different times, or people alleging to be involved with those camps. But what I would say is that Kemi made it very clear that it's time to unite, that she was very complimentary about Robert, and rightly so, and wants him to play a key role in any future shadow government that she sets up. And I hope that we see all the leadership contenders who have not since said that they don't want to stand in a shadow cabinet, like James Cleverly, be willing to put themselves forward, because we need the broad depth and breadth of the Conservative Party to come together. And what we will then do in that time is work very closely to come up with a policy platform, having reviewed, as Kemi said rightly so, our previous positions that we've held whilst we were in government, to figure out where we got things wrong and what we need to fix things that Labour are clearly pulling apart. I think Sir Keir Starmer is in for a rude awakening when he faces Kemi Badenoch next Wednesday at the Dispatch Box. I think he's going to realise he's got a tough cookie to deal with.
Jonathan, just want to read you a comment from one of our viewers. Richard Hill says, how can we say the Conservatives have moved further to the right, which is what a lot of people are saying. Kemi was the more right-wing of the two, but she hasn't presented any policies. What we heard from Kemi was a lot of rhetoric, very confident speaker, but we didn't actually hear what her plans were, did we?
Well, look, one of the reasons I back Rob, because personally, I would like the fact that we did get more detail and substance around the policy agenda. But Kemi is perfectly right and fair in saying that she wants to actually have a review of what went wrong when we were in government, what we didn't actually get on and achieve. And she wants to have these policy commissions that take time. And I think that's the right thing to do in part as well, because obviously Rob was offering some policies, but not in depth on every single policy position. Look at Sir Keir Starmer. He made 10 promises to the Labour members to become leader, then lied about them, broke every single pledge once he became leader. Then he told the British public, for example, he wouldn't put up taxes on working people. And as a lie to them, as we've just seen in the recent budget, now hitting them in their pay packets, creating a wage suppression and creating potential job losses in the future too, and reliant on the state and public sector rather than the private sector who creates our growth, destroying the farmers of our great nation. So I think Kemi is correct in saying that where we are now may not well be where the Labour Party is in 3-4 years' time. So we need to take our time to come up with a policy platform that will be acceptable to the British public, that will actually deliver the change the country really wants to see, and takes into account where Labour has left the country at the moment they decide to call the election.
Jonathan, yeah, I mean, as you say, you've got a long time. There's 5 years to wait. Anything can happen in those 5 years. Just want to ask you one thing. Sir Linton Crosby, who masterminded our Tory campaigns for 2 decades, he thinks the word Tory now is almost like a dirty word, and maybe we should stop using that, and the Conservative/Tory party need to come up with a different name. How do you fancy something like, I don't know, Reform? What do you reckon?
No, I'm the Conservative Unionist Party, and we should be actually saying the full name much more regularly, because we're proud to stand up for all the parts of our great United Kingdom. But I do accept that the brand of the Conservative Party has been very heavily damaged. There's no doubt about that. And Conservative parliamentarians and members would be very cautious to understand that whilst there was real anger at Labour recently, as we've seen over winter fuel payments in the budget. I think if we saw in recent things like the BBC Question Time audience, where a gentleman made it clear that he was still as much angry with the Conservative Party as he has currently for the Labour Party, there's an awful lot that needs to be done to rebuild the trust with the great British public. And Kemi now has a huge challenge, not just to re-energise and reinvigorate our members first, who will be the foot soldiers on the ground to sell the message of conservatism across the country.
Talking of your foot soldiers,
come up with a policy platform that's believable.
Talking of your foot soldiers, Jonathan, very quickly, because we're running out of time. Kemi got less support amongst your members than Liz Truss, the lettuce. What does that say about your party at the moment?
Well, I think at that time when we had that leadership election, we were obviously in government. We were electing essentially the Prime Minister of the country. This is a different situation where obviously, as you've seen from the turnout, it is lower than we've had in, I think, since 2001, from my recollection. Clearly, that says our members are just feeling a bit downhearted, disheartened at some part, because obviously they just had a massive thumping in the general election. They were sick of the parliamentary infighting that was going on. I apologise regularly when I talk to members across the country for being a parliamentarian that was involved in that bickering at times behind the scenes, and put my hand up for that responsibility. And it's essential now, as I say, that parliamentarians and ex-parliamentarians like myself, who are fortunate enough to have a profile to come on shows like this, that we unite, that we get behind Kemi, and that we show that leadership that our members want to see. And then by re-energising them and reinvigorating them, will we have the opportunity to make the wider case to the country? And it's a huge task that Kemi has, rebuilding Conservative campaign headquarters from the ground up, and then, as I say, going out to the country to put forward the case for conservatism.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jonathan Gullis there, former Conservative Deputy Chairman. Thank you very much. Now, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and more, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. After the break, I'll be hearing from my panel, Michael Walker and Mike Parry, and anyone else called Mike who wants to join in, basically, as Kemi Badenoch is crowned the new leader of the Conservative Party. Don't go anywhere. It's going to get fiery. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kisko, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax, because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%. Whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school, they should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
OK, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Newsroom. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday out there. Now, as we've been discussing, Kemi Badenoch has been crowned the new leader of the Conservative Party, Queen of the Conservative Party, if you like. The former Business Secretary was declared the winner in an event in central London today. She defeated her rival, Robert Jenrick, by 53,000 votes to 41,000. Joining me in the studio now is the host of Novara Live, Michael Walker, and broadcaster Mike Parry. Thank you very much for joining me. Right, gentlemen, so first of all, because we were just discussing this in the break, does it matter that now the Conservatives are being led by a black female? Is that even something we should be mentioning, Mike?
Well, it doesn't matter at all to me. I'm absolutely thrilled. I think she was easily the best candidate. I think Robert Jenrick was a bit of a flip-flopper. He was a Remainer, and he seemed to veer off to the right, really, I think, to try and acquire, you know, the right side of the party. But, I mean, when I look at politicians now, I don't even see the colour of the skin. You know, I didn't know Rishi Sunak was Asian, to be honest, because he was just the Prime Minister, although I am told there was a small element within the Tory party who thought being Asian would cost some Tories the right not to vote for him, which is a horrible thing to say in the modern Britain. But no, for me, Kemi Badenoch, you see, I am old enough to remember Thatcher. And to me, this is history repeating itself, because Kemi has now been voted leader of the Conservative Party against a very left-wing Labour government, and Mrs Thatcher had to face up against a left-wing Labour government who bankrupted the country, and on the strength of what you just called an abortion of a budget, right, in this country, I can see the current Labour government badly damaging this country, the economy, the workplace, small businesses, and I think Kemi Badenoch is the woman to stand up and get to the dispatch box and point out all the things they're doing wrong. I'm an absolute 100% supporter of hers because I'm a small C Conservative, and I believe so is she.
Well, very, very spirited. And Barbara, hi Barbara, you've just got in touch. Dawn, you seem to think it matters that Kemi is female and black. I'm asking this question because a friend of mine, Steffi Tecci, who's coming on later, the wonderful, and who is black and female, she's really pleased with this. She thinks it's inspirational. So that's why I'm asking, does it actually matter? Should we be talking about her sex or the colour of her skin? Personally, no. I think she's an amazing woman, and I always think the best man for the job is a woman. Well, certain exceptions apply, obviously. Michael, what do you make about this? Is this the best thing for the Tory party?
Her election, I suppose, on her being a black woman, I think we can welcome it, right? I don't think it's the most important thing about her.
No, I don't think it is.
But I think it's, you know, other things.
I think it's irrelevant.
There's something good about the country.
When you say welcome it, I mean, I'm not even welcoming it because I'm saying, no, but there are we're embracing a black woman. I didn't even realise she was black, if you see what I mean. You know, I don't see colour of skin.
There are lots of countries in the world where you wouldn't have, especially the centre-right party.
Absolutely.
So I think, you know, that's other things being equal.
No, it's inspirational for the young black women I know who are thrilled by it.
I think on whether it's a good choice. I mean, I think Kemi Badenoch, she's interesting for sort of political journalists because she is a bit unpredictable in interviews.
Yeah, it has been said she can start a fight in an empty room.
Exactly, and she likes to say that she's always saying what she thinks. In a way, there's an interesting dichotomy between her saying, I say it how it is, and getting to the end of a leadership election without having committed to a single policy position, because that's actually a little bit slippery.
Yeah.
One thing you can judge a politician on, I think, is how they fight a campaign. She's going to be leader of the opposition. She's got to be a campaigner. Now, I don't think, on the face of it, she's won the campaign, obviously. That's the most important thing. But she started out as the favourite.
Huge margin.
She started out as the favourite, and I think, actually, her sort of reputation fell a little bit as the campaign went on. People saw that she was sort of capable of doing, let's say, pickups, for example, when she sort of seemed to infer or imply that maternity pay was a little bit too high.
Yes.
And, you know, she almost didn't get into the final two. So I don't think she's proved herself as a brilliant campaigner, even if she is sort of an interesting figure.
But, Michael, I've got to contest you there because, you see, I think Jenrick was a flip-flopper and I think he'd say anything to try and get a few votes. So he came up with the headline, "We're going to leave the ECHR if I get in." Now, you can say she didn't come out with any distinctive policies, but that's better for me than coming out with a headline policy just to draw attention to yourself and I'll take us out the ECHR, you know. And to me, everything she said was calm, collected and thoughtful. Not, you know, when Jenrick gave his presentation at the Tory party, for the selection process, he was all over the stage and waving his arms around and all that. And I felt he was trying to double-think the audience. What do they want me to say? She, to me, was absolutely supremely confident in everything she said she believed.
Do you think she will worry Labour more than Robert Jenrick?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, Michael might disagree, but at the dispatch part, you see, I think Keir Starmer is a very poor politician. He's poor at performing in the Commons. She is very good. And I think what would really excite me is Angela Rayner and Kemi Badenoch, you know, sparring with each other in the Commons, which will happen because, you know, the Prime Minister will be away on occasions.
Just wonder where you were going with that one, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's very exciting. I think she's a very, very exciting candidate.
Michael?
I think she's an interesting candidate. I mean, one of the things that was briefed about her a fair amount during the leadership election, which I didn't actually see that much pushback from her people, is that she's not necessarily a hard worker. Now, I very much relate with that. I relate to that. I don't like the mornings. I'm not necessarily particularly good at chairing a meeting, but I don't want to be Prime Minister. So there's slightly different standards. So I do think there is a real possible downside to her leadership, that it could be fairly chaotic if she, you know, seems like she's sort of phoned it in a little bit. Sometimes she can seem like she's phoning it in a little bit. But it'll be interesting. I feel like Keir Starmer probably won't know what to expect. She's going to be strongest on issues about, probably, race, culture, immigration, because she'll be taking a right-wing position, but she'll be saying, you can't call me racist because I'm a black woman.
I'm not sure. I don't think she'll cash in on the colour of her skin to suddenly become, you know, a flag waver for immigrant communities or anything like that. I think she'll treat...
I'm kind of saying precisely the opposite, which is she's going to stand up and say...
treat everybody equally, yeah.
I think she'll stand up and say, we should clamp down on immigration.
Yes,
you can't
I agree.
call me racist for saying that because
I agree.
I'm a black woman.
I agree. I totally agree with you. And I think she'll, you know, take a harder line on immigration and people who shouldn't be here. That's because, of course, her background means that this country's given her everything. She said that several times. You know, my parents were immigrants. I've come here. This country's given me everything. I want to offer that opportunity to people who deserve to be here.
Right, OK, gentlemen, you're not going too far, but we have to leave that debate for now. Sir Keir Starmer has congratulated Ms Badenoch on her win. In a post on social media, he said, "Congratulations, Kemi Badenoch, on becoming the Conservative Party's new leader. The first black leader of a Westminster party is a proud moment for our country. I look forward to working with you and your party in the interests of British people." Interesting. Yes, they've got a woman, remember. Keir, you don't know what they are, do you? In any case, you're with me, Dawn Newsroom, on GBNews. Lots more coming up on today's show. It's neck and neck in those key swing states across the pond. Madder than we are. Just who will come out on top as Americans prepare to elect a new president? That and much, much more to come after your latest headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's 12:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. As you've just been hearing, Kemi Badenoch has been elected as the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader, Rishi Sunak, for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
Now, 6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found at the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls, aged between 14 and 17, were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. Police believe the attackers know the victim and the girl remains in hospital in critical condition. Now, more than 5,000 migrants have arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Thursday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing the search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and buildings following the flash floods, as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has declared the area a disaster zone. The Spanish government has now confirmed 205 deaths so far. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Most of us do have a calm weekend ahead of us, and that is because high pressure is sat across the UK, bringing light winds for most of us, but where those isobars are a little bit closer together across the southwest, but particularly in the northwest as well, we could see a little stronger of a breeze, gusts of around 30 to 35 miles an hour along some northern coastal areas of Scotland. With high pressure, though, it means that it's going to be largely dry. A few spots of drizzle around, but there certainly is plenty of cloud right across the UK, bringing relatively grey skies. Temperatures underneath all of that are actually a couple of degrees above where we'd expect them to be for the time of year, generally ranging between 13 and 15 degrees Celsius. If you do have any bonfire night celebrations planned for this evening, then most of us are looking to stay relatively dry. Can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, again, particularly around some higher ground sites just to watch out for, and certainly the skies are going to be very cloudy right throughout the evening for many of us. A bit misty and murky, again, particularly over the tops of the hills, but we might start to see a few clearer spells developing across northeastern areas of Scotland, and this part of the UK is likely to hold on to that as we head throughout much of the evening and overnight as well. So underneath those clearing skies, we could see temperatures drop down a bit more here, maybe even some patchy frost developing in rural spots across parts of Moray and Aberdeenshire. But elsewhere underneath that cloud, it certainly is going to be quite a mild night. Temperatures in many of our towns and cities holding up around 10 degrees Celsius. On Sunday, we pretty much do it all over again. There's going to be a lot of cloud around once again. The best of any brightness or sunshine likely to be for the northeastern areas of Scotland, maybe just filtering its way into other parts of northern and eastern England on the odd occasion as well. Most of us dry again, but still just watch out for that drizzle in there. Temperatures down by a degree or so, generally around 12-13 degrees Celsius. Is there any sign of things to change? Well, not really. It is going to be staying pretty cloudy, but as we head towards Wednesday, it will also be turning a little bit milder.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello.
Hello, there you are. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a lovely weekend out there. Now, we have just 3 days to go before Americans vote for their next president, and I'm weirdly excited by this because it is very, very close. And a brand new YouGov study here has revealed that Kamala Harris is the preferred candidate over Donald Trump amongst 7 Western European countries. The poll shows here in Britain, 61% of those asked favour Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to come to you first on this one, Michael. What do you make of that? I sort of got the impression most people here would have preferred Trump, but, I mean, what do I know?
Potentially most of the audience of this show might lean Trump. But
what do you mean by that, young man?
Well, but your audience is fairly right-wing and Donald Trump is right. I don't think that's an offensive thing to say. I think your audience would probably self-identify as fairly right-wing.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, across all of Western Europe, actually, and most of the world, most people prefer Kamala Harris to Donald Trump. Because
well, that's a bit sweeping.
Well, no, I mean, this is I've seen the YouGov poll. Right?
Okay.
So according to this YouGov
and polls are always accurate.
Well,
we know they're
more
not
accurate than guesswork, aren't they? So that's what we've got to go on. And it is the case that Kamala Harris is, or Donald Trump has always been very unpopular around the world. And it is curious how someone can be so unpopular in so much of the world and in the United States be seen as a plausible candidate for president. Obviously, you're talking about the polls in the United States, completely neck and neck.
Yes.
Looking at some of the modelling from The Economist, and they literally say their central estimate is that he gets 271 electoral college votes and she gets 269. So, like, it literally could not be close.
It is very, very close.
Be Pennsylvania.
I mean, it's sort of like... you said the population of America is...
About 300 million.
300 million, right, and they're down to these two.
Yeah, but that's been the position in America for some decades, because you can make yourself very wealthy in America and people say, well, I want to go into politics. You know, Trump's done both, and Elon Musk now sees himself as a political force in America. He's the richest man in the world. Just to respond to what Michael said, I don't know about the popularity of Trump outside of America. 64% of people in America don't have a passport, so they really only care about what happens in their country, not outside. They couldn't care less what the rest of the world thinks. No, that's what I mean. I mean, there's no votes in what people think in the UK. That's why British journalists never get an interview with the president and that kind of thing. But somebody mentioned a statistic earlier. Is it 7 countries in Europe favour Kamala Harris over...
Yeah, that was the poll we just read out,
But that's because, again, Trump is saying, I might bring in tariffs on trade when I become the President of the United States, 10% tariffs for goods from Europe. And he's also... almost certainly, again, going to say Europe's got to do more to defend itself. We're not going to give all the money to NATO like we have in the past. And that means that we are running scared of America flexing its muscles and saying we're going to be more introvert. So that could be why those are in there. But in terms of his political philosophy, I prefer his to Kamala Harris's, and out of the choice of 2 really, not perfect candidates, I hope Trump becomes the next president again.
Michael?
I hope Kamala Harris wins. I don't think she's a particularly strong candidate, but I think that Donald Trump... I mean, he tried to overturn an election. He still doesn't accept that he lost the 2020 presidential election. So I perfectly understand and think it's perfectly fair enough if you say your politics are closer to the programme he offers. But are you not worried that he tried to overturn an election?
What worries...
Is not sort of a basic acceptance of the democratic system a prerequisite to support?
Michael, I live in the real world, and in the real world, Afghanistan collapsed because Joe Biden got it completely wrong.
But that was the deal that Donald Trump signed.
I don't care. He saw it through. He saw it through. No, I'm sorry, he saw it through. The Middle East wouldn't be in the mess it's in now if Donald Trump had remained president.
What's the evidence?
No, the Abraham Accords were going through, and we all know that other countries in the Middle East were getting closer to Israel, and no, hang on, and that wouldn't have happened if Trump... And also, I believe sincerely, I've got no proof, Ukraine would not have been invaded by Russia if Donald Trump was the president. I believe that Trump is a very strong man in the eyes of the world. He sorted out the North Korea problem, which in itself is helping to sort out the China problem.
He didn't really sort out the North Korea problem.
He did.
He just said... North Korea, you can kind of do what you want, right? There was a tension between, and I'm not for or against it, but you can very easily sort out a problem if you just say, you know what, let's be friends, right? He sorted out the North Korean problem by saying, you do what you want to do, but then at the same time, he restarted the Iranian problem by ripping up that nuclear deal. So you can sort of look around the world and say, well, we'll be friends, we won't be friends.
But the nuclear deal was, as he said, lunatic. It couldn't possibly work. It was against America's interests. So
what do you think what do you think's going on in North Korea?
No, what I'm saying is, he said to a madman in North Korea who was threatening to launch nuclear weapons around the world, I've got a bigger button than you, mate. And all of a sudden, North Korea shut up.
But
he acts hard and strong, and he would have acted hard and strong against Putin, and Putin would not have invaded Ukraine, in my view, had Trump still been president.
I think he'll pressure Ukraine to sign a peace deal with
I agree
Maybe
with
that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I think there'll be lots of people in Ukraine who don't want to sign that peace deal at this point in time. At the same time, this war is costing lots and lots of lives. His foreign policy will be interesting. I suppose the issue with Donald Trump is that the downside is so huge. You know, it could be the case that his unique style of foreign policy making leads to less wars, but he's more likely, I think, to lead us towards a sort of accidental nuclear war.
Yeah, but there were no wars when he was president the last time. In the 4 years he was president, for the first time since the Second World War, America didn't go to war with anybody. It was amazing. He kept the peace around the world, and I believe that peace was shattered when Trump left and Joe Biden came in. Weakness of the presidency of Joe Biden has caused world problems.
OK, well, we're discussing American politics here. What do you make of Elon Musk attacking Sir Keir Starmer's inheritance tax rate on farmers and saying, you know, the Treasury need to go back on this one?
Yeah.
It's not right.
It's totally bizarre. I mean, I assume if anyone sat down Elon Musk for an interview and asked him about the issues, he would not be able to explain what is going on. He is someone who just likes to retweet stuff. You often see him replying, interesting, to tweets that a 4-year-old would be able to tell are misinformation and false. Right, so sort of using this guy. I mean, I think he's a very impressive businessman. Very impressive businessman.
Yeah.
Like SpaceX, very impressive company. Tesla, very impressive company. But as a interpreter of political reality, I think he leaves quite a lot to be desired.
Well, I'm sure he's got a massive ego. He's the richest man in the world, you know, sometimes Jeff Bezos is or whatever. But I must admit, when I picked up the Daily Telegraph this morning and the headline on the front and the splash, Musk, PM is wrong on farm tax rate, I was thinking, what's Musk got to do with the agricultural situation in this country? He, of course, by response will say, well, I've got the world's biggest information network, it's called X, I can get involved in anything I want. But tech billionaire weighs in on inheritance changes as British MPs face angry constituencies. And I'm thinking, what does Elon Musk know about what goes on in East Anglia? You know what I mean?
Politics is mad on both sides of the water, isn't it? OK, thank you very much for joining me on that one. OK, now I'm Dawn Newsroom. This is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Manchester United have appointed Ruben Amorim as their new head coach until 2027. We'll get the latest on that and all the biggest games in football this weekend. All that much more to come. Don't move a muscle. We'll see you very soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's Matty Minder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning it was I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very
it was a
humble
nice
guy.
surprise. No, really in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that's surely like an underdog.
Yeah, it did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also, like, kind of simultaneously, my confidence improved at the same time, and then that, like, little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically, if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But, yeah, I would say... I think most people probably attribute it to, like, a grandparent or something that they maybe done with, like, their parents when they was growing up. So I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody,
all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it is really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend, and I hope you're having a damn fine one out there. Now, it's time to go through all the latest sports news. It's more fun than politics, isn't it? Sports broadcaster, sports genius, I think.
No.
Aidan McGee joins us now to explain what the hell is going on in the world of football.
Well, look, I mean, let's look at Man United first of all. A little bit pantomime, wasn't it, towards the end of the week? You had Ruud van Nistelrooy back at base saying he wasn't sure if he was going to be part of the framework going forward. You had Ruben Amorim saying, I'd like to take over at the end of the season. Would that be OK? Man United saying it's now or never. Then he said, I can take over December the 1st. And then United, it was revealed yesterday by Sporting Lisbon that they paid an extra £1 million, or 900 grand actually, to get him out of his contract early. But he still doesn't start until November the 11th. They've got 3 games until then. So anyway, listen, he's going to be on the door pretty soon. They need a change. I've always felt that they needed somebody more dynamic in the dressing room.
He's very young, isn't he?
He's 39, I think. Only Wilf McGuinness and the great Sir Matt Busby took over Man United at a younger age. But they're getting younger and younger now anyway.
Oh, everybody is.
The days when Jim Smith...
But it's not a panic appointment, isn't it? Basically, this guy, Ruben Amorim, was being courted by Manchester City, who may lose their manager at the end of the season, right?
It was also...
So they thought, oh, I tell you what, we'll get him first and spike the guns of
it was not just that.
Manchester City.
Not just that.
Yeah,
he was lined up he was considered by Liverpool in the summer to get that job. He turned up at West Ham for an interview, and then they'd given the job to Lopetegui.
Yeah.
So listen, I've seen Tuchel was the same in England before he joined Chelsea. He was linked with lots of clubs. It almost happened, but when he did get a job, he did very well. But
the problem is, ever since Jose Mourinho emerged as the genius manager he was,
2004.
Yeah, so he took Porto to the Portuguese title, which in itself was a fantastic achievement. Then won the Champions League with the most
as well.
and the UEFA Cup with the UEFA Cup in Seville, and then the Champions League, and everybody thought, any young Portuguese manager now, at the age of 39, must be a Jose Mourinho. But didn't Tottenham and Chelsea appoint Andre Villas-Boas, who was useless after... Because if you've only won a league in Portugal... I'm sorry, you're not qualified to take over Manchester United.
Football clubs are like kids in the playground. They follow each other.
It's his job, right?
I'm just helping him out.
No, it's not. I'm glad to have Michael alongside me.
It's like sitting in the pub with you, isn't it?
But the football clubs follow each other, wherever the trends are. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in terms of that word dynamism, I looked at all the people who've taken over Sir Alex Ferguson since 2013. They've not been people who are going to shake the dressing room, and that's what that club needs. The culture needs to change. They can worry about that later on. That's going to be 3 or 4 years. But in the here and now, this guy's been hired because he's good at getting results immediately. He's not one of these guys who needs a bit of time to...
Yeah, in Portugal, though. In Portugal, nowhere else.
Shush. I'm just going to... Michael, a deep analysis.
I wish them all the best.
The perfect ending. We're running out of time. Thank you very much, Aidan. Other football teams are available, including West Ham, who are playing nothing. Very exciting, I know. OK, thanks to Aidan, Michael and Mike. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, so you really don't want to go anywhere, including our top story that Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Tory party. But let's get the weather, shall we? Here's Jonathan with all the details.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along the northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, with the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win Christmas on us this year. There's cash, £20,025 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also £5,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The number of pubs may reach critically low levels.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is a decline in the number of pubs in Britain, and it's fallen. This is an absolutely astonishing figure. So it's basically fallen 10% in a decade. So you know, do our math. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. So if that carries on, we'd have, get this, only 1,000 pubs by 2074. So the big question is, what will become extinct first? The bank branch on your high street, or the pub on your street corner? And this is a kind of perfect storm for landlords and landladies of, you know, the cost of labour. We saw, I mean, remember when the energy prices were at the high, we just realised just how much energy it keeps to keep the lights on in the local boozer. Yeah. As well as, you know, as the cost of the golden nectar itself. So, as they call it in Australia.
Well, talking about that, I was mentioning the other day to, was it my father-in-law? I said, I used to, when I first started going to the pub, I was 15,
Okay.
I was nearly 16, I got half a shandy. No, we used to have Monday Club, where a pint of Foster's was £1.50, and my father-in-law was saying, I went to London the other day, a pint was £8.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And when you've got those kind of prices, why wouldn't you just go down the supermarket and get 16 tinnies for £5?
So you're going all Aussie now. Put the tinnies in the esky before you have the bar.
Good day, mate. Why not?
I agree, actually. I think it's concerning. A lot of people look at the high streets and they're very concerned that it's looking quite glum, to be honest. You know, lots of things are closing. But the reality is it's because people are not buying from the high street. They're not going to the pub, you know. People are just deciding, you know, what they're going to do in their spare time. Are they really going to go to the pub, or are they going to potentially go to, you know, David Lloyd or a Nuffield, you know, join a gym membership? They're just looking at their expenses and just deciding, you know what, we're going to actually cut costs, you know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 2nd of November. I don't know what happened to October either, but here we are. It's November. This is the weekend on GB News, and I hope you're having a lovely Saturday out there. Now, our top story throughout the show, Kemi Badenoch has beaten Robert Jenrick in the Tory leadership race, becoming the new leader of the Conservative Party. The 44-year-old received just over 53,000 votes to Mr Jenrick's 41,000 and will take over from Rishi Sunak after months, it feels like years, of campaigning. She says it's an enormous honour to be elected. We'll have all the latest reaction to that breaking story today. We'll also have the latest fallout from that midweek budget as tech billionaire Elon Musk tells Keir Starmer your tax rate on farmers is wrong. OK, and elsewhere, just 3 days to go until we find out who will be the next president of the United States. Weirdly exciting this time around. The candidates are neck and neck in those key swing states as we approach the crucial day, fireworks day actually. We get the latest from across the pond. I'm Dawn Neeson and this is The Weekend. But this show is nothing without you and your views, and it's so easy to join in the conversation or chat about whatever you want. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch? What do you make of Trump? Politics, mad on both sides of the pond. Let me know your thoughts on all of the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say and join in our conversation. Great panel for you this hour. Keeping me company is journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, who just sat up very straight there, didn't you? And political commentator Claire Pearsall. But before we get into today's stories, let's get the news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. Now, as you've just been hearing, Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they had made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
Now, while Starmer has already congratulated the new Tory leader, the chair of the party, Ellie Reeves, has criticised the Conservatives for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
Now, 6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. Police believe the attackers know the victim and the girl remains in hospital in critical condition. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed calls for the UK and US to allow his troops to use Western-made long-range weapons. In recent weeks, North Korea has continued to deploy more soldiers to Russia to fight in the war, with Defence Secretary John Healey warning of the growing alliance between North Korea and Moscow. Now, more than 5,000 migrants have arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to the Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Thursday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. It comes after the 10th death this month was recorded on Wednesday, with the total number of people who have died while trying to cross the Channel this year to 50. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large parts of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and building following the flash floods as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has declared the area a disaster zone. The Spanish government has now confirmed 205 deaths so far. And finally, a US Navy veteran has become the first ever professional Santa Claus to have a bionic arm. Mike Tyndall of Tennessee had his left forearm amputated in 1994 after an automatic wood saw accident. When he received a bionic arm from Bristol-based company Open Bionics, he said, "When I saw it at first, the design, it was perfect. It even matched my Santa suit." Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
Thank you very much, Lewis. And just let's be clear, kids. OK, there is only one real Santa. That's just one of Santa's helper with the bionic arm. But you're just going to get your presents quicker. And it's not long, is it? OK, now let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Time to get down to business. Those are the words of former Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch as she was declared the new Conservative Party leader. She beat Robert Jenrick in the race among Tory members following a lengthy contest. Ms Badenoch received over 53,000 votes, while Mr Jenrick got 41,000. But not everyone is thrilled with her election. Labour Party Chair Ellie Reeves says Ms Badenoch was part of the chaos of the last 14 years.
I'm proud that she's the first black woman to lead a political party in Westminster. But Kemi was part of the chaos of the last 14 years, serving in various roles. And you think about her leadership campaign, where she made some pretty negative comments about autistic children. She said that maternity pay was excessive, the national minimum wage was harmful. I'm quite worried about what that means, actually. Is she going to get rid of, is their policy going to be to get rid of maternity pay? Would they scrap the minimum wage? These are all things that would need to be answered.
That's Ellie Reeves there. Not a big fan of Miss Badenoch, and that's Rachel Reeves' sister, by the way, just in case you were wondering, they are sisters. Joining me from outside GCHQ is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley.
Hello, yes, I'm here outside CCHQ. Kemi Badenoch, the new Tory leader, is inside the building. We've seen a couple of her loyal supporters go in, including Andrew Bowie. There is a feeling that she might be picking her shadow cabinet now, although it might be something that she does over the next few days. She has won with 56% of the vote. That isn't a resounding victory. It was actually a lot closer than lots of Westminster watchers were predicting, and the turnout was very low for a Conservative Party leadership race. In 2019, when Boris Johnson was elected, it was 87%. In 2022, when Liz Truss was elected, it was 82%. This time, it's just over 72%. So 1 in 4, just over 1 in 4 Conservative Party members didn't vote in this election. That means that Kemi Badenoch is starting from quite far behind, if you like. The Parliamentary Party is fractured too. In the final round of parliamentary voting, it was pretty much a third each for Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly and Robert Jenrick, and Kemi Badenoch was only just ahead. So it's a pretty difficult start for her. That said, the Conservatives actually astonishingly managed to overtake Labour in one poll yesterday, 29% of the vote compared to Labour's 28%. So a kind parting gift there, if you like, from Rishi Sunak. It'll be really, really interesting to see what Kemi Badenoch chooses to do with the shadow cabinet over the course of this leadership campaign, this 14-week leadership campaign. She's been pretty tight-lipped on what she plans to do policy-wise. So I think we'll find out very soon when we hear from who her shadow cabinet is.
Olivia Utley, thank you very much for bringing us up to date with what Kemi Badenoch is doing after winning that leadership race, basically. Joining me now is former Labour MP and Minister of State for Europe, Dennis McShane, as well as my wonderful panel, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and political commentator Claire Pearsall. Claire, as the only one with actually a dog in this particular race, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Go on. Did you actually vote? Lots of Conservative Party members didn't vote.
No, I have to admit, I didn't. I found it very, very hard to whittle down those two. And I went backwards and forwards, and I've looked at the pros and cons for both candidates. And at the end of the day, I couldn't put my cross next to either name. And it's the first time I've never voted in a leadership contest. So it's really, really difficult. And I always encourage people to vote in absolutely every single election. So I appreciate that I'm a massive hypocrite, but I just couldn't.
Why? What was it? What was the problem with these final two?
I think they didn't represent where I come from, and a lot of people would like to consign me either to the Liberal Democrats or to the Labour Party, depending on how much they hate me. And I think
You're welcome, Claire.
But they just both didn't quite address the concerns that I have, which are surrounding education, surrounding transport, surrounding the health service. I didn't get any feeling that they'd paid any attention to those issues, but also the economy. And I just felt that they were chasing after roughly the same group of people. They're looking at immigration and making that a major issue, which it is.
Chasing off reform-type people, do you think?
I think so. I think so. When you have to realise that not every part of the defeat of the Conservative Party was down to reform. A lot of people did look at Labour and a lot of people went to the Liberal Democrats, and they haven't given any indication that they understand why we lost and what they can do about it.
Who would have been your ideal candidate?
Well, I was a Tom Tugendhat fan, so I was very disappointed when he went out. And then I sort of looked at all the candidates. I looked at James Cleverly, but I never quite decided at that point that there was anybody that represented what I wished the party to be.
Benjamin, you obviously couldn't vote, although you do hide it quite well. Are you surprised that Kemi is the winner of this race between those two?
Well, it was the person that we expected and that the attempts at polls of Tory members expected. I think one thing that you can take, bearing in mind, I hope there are a lot of little girls out there watching politics right now and have just seen the first woman ever deliver a budget, the first black woman lead a Westminster party, and maybe...
You think that's important? Because lots of people are going, well, why do you keep going on about the fact that she's a woman or a black woman or...
And maybe days from the first woman ruling the US. So, I think this might be 7 days in which, a lot of glass ceilings have been shattered. And so I think that's a point to be really positive about. And I hope that has a generational change on young women wanting to go into politics. But I think Kemi Badenoch is interesting. The difficult things the Tories will have is getting attention to what they're arguing because they have so few MPs. Now, if there's one thing Kemi Badenoch's good at, it's having striking ideas that get front pages. She was very effective as a Secretary of State for doing that. But on the flip side, what is the job of the Leader of the Opposition? Well, it's to try and drag a party into the centre ground, to take it on the ground they just lost on. And everything she said during the leadership election was basically that it was about her first principles. It was about where she starts, that she's ideological. Now, I can't think of any political party leader who's won an election behaving like that. It's not a winning strategy. She also hates doing interviews. She does not very many of them. She doesn't like the media. She's not very quiet about that fact. And she's going to need them if she's going to break through.
Do you think, Dennis, that she will worry Labour more than Robert Jenrick would have done?
Yes. I mean, first of all, congratulations. I'm sorry, the fact that the Tories again have chosen a woman and again have chosen an immigrant. I mean, this is a big shout-out for Britain's immigrant community, which has been so rubbish in so much of the press and by right-wing politicians in recent years. I hope it's a good omen for the American election, but let's wait and see. And yeah, I think she could worry Labour. I don't quite know whether...
They've never had a female leader, have they?
Or a person of colour leading the party. But looking at the two of them, Jenrick and Kemi, it just reminded me so much of Ian Duncan Smith and Michael Howard in the second Blair government. The Tories veered off to the right with Ian Duncan Smith, who wasn't quite as bad as Liz Truss, but he was totally unsuited to be a party leader, and then went for a very clever lawyer who went on and on about immigration and lost the next election. So Kemi's got 5 long years to
There's a lot of lawyers who go on and on about immigration at the moment. No, isn't there, to be fair?
Kemi's got 5 long years to remake the Conservative Party. And I just hope she studies why they lost so comprehensively and why the country wants, I think, to break away from extremes.
Do you think that's true, Claire? Do you think... I mean, there was a lot of infighting between the two of them, sort of like, you know, in the last few days of this competition. And they said they weren't going to do any more blue-on-blue fighting. They didn't seem to have learnt the lessons from the last days of the Tory party in power, where you were fighting like rats in a sack, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think both candidates didn't pull back on their punches. They were quite equal on that. And I think it's only natural in politics. It is a bit rough and tumble. But I think it's very difficult to be in opposition because after this, all of the cameras have gone. Kemi Badenoch now has to be leader of the opposition, which is not very exciting. It's not very glamorous. And you have to learn to pick your battles. You've got to be heard, but you need to be heard for the right reasons. And I think that she will struggle in the beginning with that. Now, I don't doubt that she's got qualities that will make her a good leader, but she needs to be able to bring the rest of the party with her. And I think the rest of the country is going to look at, does she appreciate why the Conservative Party lost? Does she appreciate why so many voters up and down the country are fed up with politics? Because I think that is more important than anything else, is to go to the public and say, we are sorry. What is it you want to see? And actually start listening. And I think politicians of all colours need to do that. They need to listen to the public and they need to pay attention.
It's interesting, Benjamin, that, you know, Sir Linton Crosby, masterminded Tory campaigns for 2 decades. I think, so, that Tory has become a dirty word. Stop using the Tory word. But he also says if Boris Johnson had still been in charge, we wouldn't have needed a new leader in the first place.
Well, I think the Tories would be making a mistake, if I may use the word that he doesn't want us to use, if they obsess over the past, you know. And I think one of the benefits of Kemi Badenoch, although, of course, she was in the government, is that she feels quite striking. So she probably feels like the biggest departure from the previous government, because a lot of people don't know who she is, for a start. That's what the polls show. Most people haven't heard of Kemi Badenoch. And because she's a black woman, it simply is surprising to see someone like leading the Tory party. I think the idea of bringing back Boris Johnson would be a mistake. I think he'd want to be Tory leader again. And so, you know, I think she has that as a selling point. But I think she is, of all the candidates, I think she was uniquely ill-suited. What I would say was I watched the GB News town hall the other day ahead of this result, and I was staggered by how bad Robert Jenrick was. He really was weak, uninteresting, unexciting. And so, you know, I think they probably made the right choice of the final 2.
Dennis, I mean, sort of like Rishi Sunak is currently still in the polls, more popular than Keir Starmer. You know, Labour aren't covering themselves in glory. I mean, so Kemi, if she puts her mind to it, has got an open goal here, hasn't she?
No, not really. I'd always advise any party leader who becomes Prime Minister, get your bad news over first. And there's been too much bad news in so many ways since Labour won the big election.
Has he said anything good?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Mario Draghi is just praising the budget. The IMF is praising the budget. I mean, there are problems with farming, with GP surgeries,
with
perhaps.
Pensioners.
Not really with pensioners, because what they want more than anything else, and I'm a pensioner, is stability. And after all the shenanigans of Johnson and Truss, we now, I think, have got probably quite a middle-of-the-road government for the next 5 years. Kemi's problem is is the 5 years problem, but that will allow... I also read what Sir Linton Crosby said, that the Tories should drop the word Tories. I thought he knew about British politics. But all these men coming out of the woodwork now, she's got a chance to name ministers, Shadow Chancellor, Shadow Foreign Secretary, etc., who could have a real impact in the way that Starmer really was a very new man. He'd only been in politics a few years before he became leader and now Prime Minister. And I think that is a big opportunity for the Conservative Party if she can seize it. But it will mean taking tough decisions. Starmer turned to the, if I may put it like this, the reform element of the Conservative Party. He said, drop dead. You're not welcome here. I'm going to suspend you. You're not going to run as candidates. Now, is Kemi able to do that to her unelectable elements on the hard extreme right? I don't know. It'd be fascinating now because she's in charge. Tories back their leader on the whole. She's got 5 years and let battle commence.
Claire, positive?
I mean, I wish her well. I think everybody keeps going on about there's 5 years. Well, there isn't necessarily 5 years. I mean, anything can happen in politics. We don't have fixed-term parliaments anymore, so things can change. And as we've seen, it has been very changeable up until now. So I think once it settles and once the Conservative Party get a grip of what it is they want to be and how they can do that together, I think we might see some inroads being made into the enormous mistakes being made by the Labour Party. And let's all be honest, pensioners are being hit incredibly hard in the budget. They are very unhappy. A lot of Labour MPs are incredibly unhappy about a lot of the changes being made in the budget, and they're in their constituencies this weekend probably getting a pretty hard time off of farmers, pensioners and pretty much everybody else. It was a mistake of the Conservative Party not to have a leader ready to take on the budget.
It would have been useful to have someone who could answer back at the time. We've run out of time on that one. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson and this is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Leave those farmers alone. There's a song in that, isn't there? Elon Musk tells Sir Keir Starmer your tax rate on farmers is wrong. We'll have the latest from that midweek budget fallout, which continues. Just want to say thank you very much to Dennis for joining us today. But there is all of that and much more to come, so don't go too far. It's GB News. I will see you soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kuysen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Van.
Well, yeah, thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. At GB News, we love to hear what you think. Every day we'll be running our poll of the day. Today we're asking, can the Tories regain seats from Labour and reform with a new leader? The results are yes, 30%, no, 62%, don't know, 8%. We're bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Nana Aquia's show. For all our latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll. Now, let's go across the Atlantic, shall we? So, talk politics over there, but more politics over here, because tech mogul Elon Musk, big American election coming up, has slammed Sir Keir Starmer over this side of the Atlantic for picking on farmers in the budget. Do keep up at the back, I've got no idea either. Musk says he should leave farmers alone and branded the tax rate as wrong, adding extra pressure on the Treasury to U-turn. It comes as farmers organise a London rally later this month to challenge the government's plans. Now, I understand why the farmers are doing that. What I don't understand, Benjamin Butterworth, is why Elon Musk is so bothered about this and getting involved. America's enough of the problem basket case-wise with politics at the moment.
I don't think we need foreign billionaires telling us what our tax status should be, regardless of who they are or what the policy is. And I don't find it surprising that the world's richest man isn't a fan of inheritance tax, especially with his 11 children. It would affect him badly if he were paying inheritance tax. But look, if the question is about the policy of farmland, is that what you're asking about?
Well, I mean, it's the fact that Elon Musk is getting his knickers in a twist so much about a farmer in East Anglia, for example.
Yeah, I don't think he actually knows anything he's talking about, quite frankly. I suspect that he's just read a few tweets. And let's look at the way Twitter works and the problem with social media, which is that it relies on constant outrage. It promotes angry, bombastic tweets. And the fact is that that's what he's doing. So, of course, it's understandable that he would pursue those kind of things. But I think the idea about the farmland loophole is what Rachel Reeves is trying to fix. So, according to the tax expert Dan Needle, 87% of farmers won't be affected by this. And you've got a situation where you get very rich people with very nice estates, and they say that some of their land is for farming to avoid inheritance tax. And that's money that they should be paying, that everyone else affected has to pay. And I don't think people should be exempt just because they, stick some goats or grow some carrots.
Ooh, fighting talk there, Claire.
Yeah, absolutely fighting talk. Farmers are just essential to our lifestyle. If we don't have farmers, we don't have enough food in this country, and the margins that they make are absolutely pitiful. I know of a dairy farm and a beef farm that were looking to get rid of the cattle that they had because it was so expensive. You've got fuel costs that have risen, fertiliser costs that have risen, food costs for animals that has also risen, and the amount that they get for the produce is woeful. It really is. And I don't think enough people are aware quite how hard farmers work. And it's not just a little bit, £1 million for properties, that's a lot. These farms are enormous. You're looking, on average, £10,000 an acre, and the average farm being over 200 acres. These are substantial properties, but it doesn't mean that they have that money in their pocket. And if you're going to pass that on from father to son, mother to daughter, whichever variation you choose, then you're going to get hit every single time. It's not that they've got this cash sitting in the bank. They really don't. Every bit of money that they have gets reinvested. So I think it's a really poor way of looking at how you can raise money by hitting those farmers when there are other ways they could have done it.
And according to figures of the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, the UK's self-sufficiency in fresh vegetables is lowest since records began in 1988. So we surely need to help our farmers.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the reasons that's happened in recent years is because farmers who largely voted for Brexit were told that subsidies that they got from the EU would come from the UK government, and it didn't happen. So, you know, life's not got any easier in the past few years for these people. So there is a problem with our food security. But I think the idea that you set up loopholes isn't the main problem. The problem is the business model of farming is very difficult, and maybe most of us should take responsibility for that when we insist on cheap pints of milk in the shops.
Right, OK, but what I know about farming is it's very small, being an inner-city girl, so I'm not going to take responsibility for running a farm and producing food. But what do you make of what Benjamin's just said?
I think it's really difficult, and I think you've got a point about Brexit, and I think that the Conservative government, my own government, has not got clean hands in this, and there needed to be extra subsidies given. But there was also this drive towards net zero, which has made farming incredibly difficult. You have to have all these different bits in place, different wildflower sanctuaries, you know, different amelioration processes for bugs, etc., etc. And I think it's made it difficult for farmers to actually do what they do best. If you have to go and plant a meadow just of wildflowers to appease the green lobby, when that could have been barley, wheat, or indeed, you know, a herd of cattle, then I think that we're in real trouble. I think the farming industry has not been taken seriously. We've taken them all for granted, and it's going to come back and bite us.
And, of course, you know, if we get rid of the farms, then Millbank can plant more wind machines and, you know, build houses and things on them. That's quite important as well, isn't it?
That sounds like a good idea. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is a row that will probably go on. I know that farmers have said that they're threatening to have tractors drive on Parliament.
The French have been there already, to be fair.
Exactly. They've actually said that they want to replicate the French tactics, which have been effective in French politics. And they've also threatened to put manure outside the door of Parliament to pour it there, which, as a local resident, I can say I would not appreciate. Please don't do that. I don't want the smell. And so they're clearly very angry about that. And I think it's a row that maybe it could be one of those things that, a bit like the pasty tax, where it seems like a small issue, but it captures the imagination. There is the threat of that. I don't think that blocking Parliament Square with tractors would be a great idea. We didn't like it when Just Stop Oil did those tactics, so I don't think it'd be justifiable for farmers to do it.
OK.
But I think they need to be able to make their point, and there's nothing like a massive tractor appearing outside Parliament to focus people's attention. I don't think they would aim to block it. I think it would be one of those sort of slow drives past. But they need to be able to...
In today's papers, they threatened a blockade.
Well, I don't support that, because I don't support Just Stop Oil and the likes blocking paths and pavements and roads either. So I don't think that's right. And I know that there was a contingency from Kent who came up and did a slow drive around and then left to make their point. And I fully support that. And I will be out there having a chat with the farmers when they come. I don't think putting manure on the pavement is a great idea. And it's, I don't think they would actually do it. But you need to be able to get your point across. And they have to be able to do that loud and proud.
And what do we, just quickly, a bit of fun on this particular story, what do we think of Wellygate? Steve Reed, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, being pictured wearing a pair of Wellingtons linked to Lord Ali, yes, £420. Obviously not that he paid for them, but it's not a good look, not thinking it through again, is it?
Well, a suggestion has been made that the former leader of Lambeth Council and Croydon Member of Parliament may not have owned wellies before getting the job, given there's not much farmland in those
South
areas.
London. Sorry, South London, it's wonderful.
It's got some nice parks, but not quite things you need wellies for. So maybe he was owed a pair to take up the
Lord
job.
Ali again, and expensive wellies.
They are very expensive wellies. So I did look at them and just go, well, they're very nice. But my old boots, to be fair, you know...
Don't call yourself that.
Ooh, controversial. On that note, I think we'll leave that one. I'm Johnny from this is GBNews, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including, is it time to ban loud fireworks or even loud Benjamin Butterworth? That's what one Labour councillor in St Albans is calling for. Just in time for bonfire night, I'll be hosting an explosive debate after the news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Looking forward to that explosive debate, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 1:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. Now, Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick. She's the fourth female leader of the party and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and that they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls, aged between 14 and 17, were arrested in nearby Woodland area and are now being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. Police believe the attackers know the victim and the girl remains in hospital in critical condition. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and buildings following the flash floods, as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has declared the area a disaster zone. The Spanish government has now confirmed 205 deaths so far. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. There's more from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Most of us do have a calm weekend ahead of us, and that is because high pressure is sat across the UK, bringing light winds for most of us, but where those isobars are a little bit closer together across the southwest, but particularly in the northwest as well, we could see a little stronger of a breeze, gusts of around 30 to 35 miles an hour along some northern coastal areas of Scotland. With high pressure, though, it means that it's going to be largely dry. A few spots of drizzle around, but there certainly is plenty of cloud right across the UK, bringing relatively grey skies. Temperatures underneath all of that are actually a couple of degrees above where we'd expect them to be for the time of year, generally ranging between 13 and 15 degrees Celsius. If you do have any bonfire night celebrations planned for this evening, then most of us are looking to stay relatively dry. Can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, again, particularly around some higher ground sites just to watch out for, and certainly the skies are going to be very cloudy right throughout the evening for many of us. A bit misty and murky, again, particularly over the tops of the hills, but we might start to see a few clearer spells developing across northeastern areas of Scotland, and this part of the UK is likely to hold on to that as we head throughout much of the evening and overnight as well. So underneath those clearing skies, we could see temperatures drop down a bit more here, maybe even some patchy frost developing in rural spots across parts of Murray and Aberdeenshire. But elsewhere underneath that cloud, it certainly is going to be quite a mild night. Temperatures in many of our towns and cities holding up around 10 degrees Celsius. On Sunday, we pretty much do it all over again. There's going to be a lot of cloud around once again. The best of any brightness or sunshine likely to be for the northeastern areas of Scotland, maybe just filtering its way into other parts of northern and eastern England on the odd occasion as well. Most of us dry again, but still just watch out for that drizzle in there. Temperatures down by a degree or so, generally around 12, 13 degrees Celsius. Is there any sign of things to change? Well, not really. It is going to be staying pretty cloudy, but as we head towards Wednesday, it will also be turning a little bit milder.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're
Proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Newsroom. Hope you're having a lovely Saturday out there. Now, it's bonfire night coming up. Do you find it all a bit much, though? Maybe you have pets who don't like it, or you just don't get what all the fuss is about. You're not alone. A Labour councillor in St Albans is calling to ban noisy fireworks, but some fear it would hurt the charities who rely on fundraising during bonfire season. Our reporter Will Hollis has this story for us.
A spectacle across the skyline. Bonfire night arrives with a bang, but for how much longer? Like hundreds of towns and cities across the UK, St Albans in Hertfordshire goes big during bonfire season. But Councillor Mike Hobday hopes to drop the boom from next year's fireworks display and beyond.
We all know that the noisiest fireworks are bad for our pet cats and dogs, they're bad for our livestock and horses, and we know that they're bad for our military veterans if they suffer from PTSD. So it's time we move to quieter fireworks.
At a St Albans District Council meeting, the Labour councillor set a motion to ban fireworks louder than 90 decibels. Rockets and large displays reach 170. The proposal is to ban noisy fireworks on council-owned land like here at Verulamium Park, where an event is held every year. But some people fear that restrictions could put the display at risk.
I like fireworks that are really noisy. I like to feel it, you know, when it pops, you kind of feel it. The harm it does on sort of vulnerable people and dogs and children, I think especially in a kind of local area, we don't really need that.
I think the noise is part of the actual event as well, and the bangs and everything else, and it just makes sense to me that it's part of that.
The RSPCA says loud fireworks can be harmful to wildlife. Liberal Democrat leader of the council, Paul de Court, pushed back, warning that a ban would encourage more home displays, triggering wider disturbance.
We may well find that there was not only much less money raised for those extremely good causes, but also an increase in the disturbance to animal welfare that people have raised.
A briefing given to councillors suggests quieter fireworks could put charity displays like the ones organised by St Albans Cathedral at risk.
There's no reason to think that quieter fireworks are any less attractive to paying customers than noisy fireworks. And they have the great advantage that they're better for animal welfare.
As fireworks light the sky before November 5th, will the bang of bonfire night soon go out with a whimper? Will Hollis, GB News, St Albans.
Oh, thank you very much, Will. Now, let's see what my panel make of this. We still have Benjamin Butterworth and Claire Pearce with us. He doesn't like a good bang, Benjamin, eh?
Carry on, GB News. Well, do you know, I think that a lot of people with dogs in particular would say that they get terrified by fireworks. I'm not sure that's a reason to ban it. Although I would ban shops selling fireworks because I think, you know, the sheer amount of antisocial behaviour that they're involved in, the weeks of disturbance. A couple of days ago, just going on and on and on at 9-10 p.m. and I thought this is ridiculous. I think that fireworks are dangerous and I don't think they should be allowed.
This is a man who's never written his name with a sparkler. He's scared of sparklers, Claire.
I know. I think we're going to have to introduce you to sparklers. They're not frightening. They're very, very good.
They're scarier than Tories.
Oh, controversial.
That's saying something.
He called you an old boot earlier on as well, didn't he? I think that's just right.
This is why I come here. So I enjoy this so much. I'm off to the fireworks tonight in my village, and it's the one time where pretty much everybody comes together. The moaning on the Facebook group stops. and everybody has a lovely time.
And on a serious note, I mean, the important thing is many animals do get worried, but you have animals, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are animals that do get worried. And I think Benjamin has got a point that when you have so many fireworks going off over probably about a month, then it's a bit much. But the majority of people with animals, if they are scared, they know how to deal with it. There is radio for dogs and cats. There are things you can do. I mean, you know, you can actually sedate them if it's so severe. But for the majority, if you're sitting in with your pet, they ignore it. My cats don't care. To be perfectly blunt, one of them just wanders out into the street and, you know, couldn't care less. The horses at the stables, they're pretty used to it, and we have Brands Hatch very nearby, and all of the local area fireworks displays tell the big yards that they've got fireworks coming up. So you can prepare the horses, you know, and keep some inside if they need to be. So there are problems.
Are organised displays OK with you, Benjamin?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You know,
even if they've got big bangs?
Well, it's not the big bang as such that's the problem. It's the fact that, you know, organised displays are fantastic. New Year's Eve, or if you ever go to Disneyland to see theirs, they're all fantastic. But they are very dangerous. And we know that people hurt themselves when they don't know how to deal with fireworks in their own garden. People use it for antisocial behaviour, and I think that's a serious issue, and it should be much harder to buy fireworks, first of all, so that you don't have a whole month of it, and I think they're actually not sold the rest of the year, if I'm not mistaken, in the supermarkets.
But we have Diwali around the same time as well, so...
Yeah, and I don't think people should be able to go out and buy dangerous fire weapons like these that seriously hurt people every year. There is no need for you to be setting them off in your street or in your backyard. We can go to the organised celebrations that happen around the country.
But it's a bit fun police. I mean...
Well, I'd rather have fun police than, you know, lose an eye.
I think the majority of people are very sensible, and the ones that you can buy in the shops aren't as powerful as the ones that you get in the displays. And I do have really fond memories of being a kid and milk bottles holding rockets and Catherine wheels
that always fell over.
That never work. And yes, people have always been hurt, but life is a little bit dangerous. And I think you have to take some personal responsibility. And yes, there will always be stupid people who will fire a rocket at another group of people, and they will get hurt irrespective of whether you sell them or not. There will always be someone that can be found selling them. So I think that, you know, you can't ban them, you can't be a fun sponge, but I do think that you need to have proper organised displays that are affordable for the families in the area.
I think people on estates that find these are being used mistakenly in a playful way or intentionally in a dangerous way will find this weekend pretty hellish, because we know that's something that happens. And I just think the argument that, OK, some people be wise, some people be stupid, well, in that case, why not let everyone carry a gun? You know, I think the level of danger that a firewalk poses is serious.
It's not quite the same as suggesting that, you know, you may as well let people carry guns. I think every single year we have this conversation about fireworks. Should they be banned? Should they be quiet?
Yes.
And we still, every year, will have the conversation irrespective. Nothing, I don't think, is going to change. There are certain restrictions on what you can buy and how many you can buy, which is quite right, but they are very important for a lot of people, especially, as you just said, with Diwali. That is part of their celebration. You've got the big fireworks displays at New Year.
I don't think it's that radical, though, to say that we shouldn't have home explosives. I honestly find the idea completely insane.
You were seriously traumatised by that sparkler as a child.
As a kid, I remember my dad in the backyard trying to set them off, and I'd be absolutely terrified. I was worse than most cats.
That doesn't surprise me. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GBNews. What do you make of this? I mean, fireworks, fun place? I mean, one of you has just got in touch who had done active service, and you do have PTSD, so there is that element to consider as well. What do you reckon? I mean, should we ban them or just have organised displays, or just ban them completely? I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GBNews. Lots more coming up on today's show, including this year's I'm a Celeb lineup has been revealed. Are you in it, Benjamin?
Can't tell you.
OK. But is your favourite star heading into the jungle? Find out after this. This is GBNews, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
This is about pulchronomics, which is the often hidden, often controversial economics of beauty. And there's this guy, he's called, here it says, Anil Hamamesh, but I think they've missed out the D, so I'm guessing he's Daniel rather than Anil, which he might be, though. He might be or he might be Anil for an Anil Hamamesh, maybe. That's his unfortunate name. But basically, he's looked into how ugliness affects people, and it turns out he's discovered that ugly people are less attractive. And that affects them for the rest of their life. Now, where this does get interesting, it is worrying because, of course, this is going to lead to the ugly rights movement, ugly pride march down some dirty back street. And but I remember hearing about this at the time. People born in the UK between March 3rd and March 9th, 1958, were part of this massive survey that was done, which was finding about what would happen to them later in life, and it went through a number of different factors. But I didn't know this. The teachers were also asked to rate their pupils on attractiveness.
Yeah, it's a bit pedo-y.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that would wash now, but it was bone structure and where they're symmetrical, that kind of thing.
You should probably really have a committee of at least half a dozen teachers. Take a sort of standardised view across that. You might get a different point of view from the biology teacher, from the Latin master.
You suggest this to a school, and then we can see if we get it going.
It's interesting, though. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but generally speaking, it is understood within sort of psychological, psychometrics and so on, that IQ is the thing that most closely maps your outcomes, generally speaking. But the idea of beauty is the one that isn't discussed. And there is genuinely a theory that this is actually the great determinant of your life chances.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Now we have a treat for you. This year's I'm a Celeb lineup has been revealed. Colleen Rooney, McFly's Danny Jones and former featherweight boxer Barry McGuigan are amongst some of the stars set to enter the jungle this month, and that's despite criticisms over last year's choice of celeb. Some are now saying this is the best cast in the show's history. Joining me now is who would be brilliant in the jungle, by the way. I'd watch you, especially wearing an outfit like that. Now, it's showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecchi.
I would watch you, Dawn.
Mutual girl love going on here.
Seriously. Why are you not on the lineup?
Well, because Jane Moore, who is an excellent tabloid journalist, similar age, is and a loose woman, is also in there.
Don't worry, next year we both can do it. Well, they are saying it is the best lineup ever, as they do every year. But you know what? Colleen Rooney, £1.5 million they've paid for her to be on the show. It's the highest fee that they've pushed, even more than Nigel Farage.
Wow.
And why so? Because they want viewers to have a compulsive viewing towards I'm a Celebrity. Obviously, people are going to want to hear about what happened between her and Rebecca Vardy, unscripted, her in a jungle habitat speaking about it. So Colleen Rooney is a good signing for them. But there's other people who are equally as kind of controversial. Talisa from Dewbs, you know, she had this big stint on X Factor, and since the past few years, her career's kind of dwindled a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what she's got to say, and especially as she has time on X Factor, it'll be good to...
yeah, it'll be interesting about the whole reality TV show experience.
And then we're talking about Reverend Richard Coles as well. I've always liked interviewing him, and I think he will be like the peacemaker in the jungle, because I think there are a lot of characters who are quite feisty on there. We've got Oti Mabutsi as well, so
she's
be interested. She might spill some beans about Strictly as well. And we've got Barry McGuigan, who I think he will be good with the challenges. For some reason, I'm tipping him to be the king of the jungle.
Are
for some
you?
reason.
I was going to say,
I'm saying it from early.
How do you
like
think
him.
Colleen will do?
I think he will do pretty well, actually. I think when it comes to the challenges, you know, the public, they like voting for people who they can see who's got a good competitive spirit and who will be up for it. And I think he will be up for it.
The golden rule is to be nice, isn't it? Well, what's happening else on Planet Showbiz?
Oh, well, Emily Attack, Dawn, you know, she's spoken about Rivals, where I think she does a fantastic job in her character, but most of her nude scenes now have been misrepresented online. People have been doctoring it, actually, you know, making it look more pornographic than it is. And I think for Emily Attack, she's always spoken about the sexual harassment that she's faced. And I think it's so sad that she hasn't been able to play this part. You know, when you think about Rivals, it's a total bonk buster, so let it be what it is. And the fact that she's now been the only one that's been singled out and not taken seriously.
Well, there was this was a naked tennis scene we were talking about, and the Mel, she was playing tennis, but it was really, literally, you saw everything.
And they tried to hide it, but obviously people who are kind of seedy have kind of exploited that, which is quite sad.
Indeed. Thank you very much,
Thank you for having me on.
We'll see you in the jungle.
See you soon.
I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show, including a news story that Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Story Party. But first, let's take a look at your weekend weather with Jonathan Voltry.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, but the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around, but as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry,
Tonight is electric.
As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 2nd of November. I know what happened to Halloween in October. It just went like that, didn't it? But we are nearly at Christmas now. This is the weekend on GB News. Now, our top story. Kemi Badenoch has beaten Robert Jenrick in the Tory leadership race, becoming the new leader of the Conservative Party. The 44-year-old received just over 53,000 votes to Mr Jenrick's 41,000 and will take over from Rishi Sunak after months of campaigning. It did go on a long while, didn't it? She says it's an enormous honour to be elected leader. And 3 days to go until we find out who will be the next president of the United States. The candidates are indeed neck and neck in those key swing states as we approach the crucial date. And Prince Andrew has officially been financially cut off by the King. A royal relator claims the annual £1 million living allowance for the Duke of York has been withdrawn, making a new low in relations between the brothers. It's a thing in the royal family at the moment, isn't it? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. But this show is nothing without you and your views. I mean, and it's so easy to join in with the conversation. Many have been getting in touch, and I'll read as many out as I can, but so many. Keep them coming. Very easy. gbnews.com/your say to get involved in what we're chatting about or anything you want to chat about. Keeping me company this hour is former Labour advisor Paul Richards and Heritage Party leader David Curtin. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, gentlemen. But before we get stuck into today's stories, here's the news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 2 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. As you've just heard, Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they have made mistakes and that they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader, Rishi Sunak, for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
And while the Prime Minister has congratulated the new Tory leader, the Labour Party chair, Ellie Reeves, has criticised the Conservatives for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
Now, 6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say that they found her on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are now being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. Police believe the attackers know the victim and the girl remains in hospital in critical condition. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed his calls for the UK and US to allow his troops to use Western-made long-range weapons. In recent weeks, North Korea has continued to deploy more soldiers into Russia to help fight their war, with Defence Secretary John Healey warning that the growing alliance between North Korea and Moscow is worrying. And more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to the Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 small boats on Thursday, which brings the total of numbers arrived to the record of last month, 5,417. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and buildings following flash floods, as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has declared the area a disaster zone. And finally, a more light-hearted story. A US Navy veteran has become the first ever professional Santa Claus to have a bionic arm. Mike Tyndall of Tennessee had his left arm amputated in 1994 after an automatic wood saw accident. When he received the bionic arm from Bristol-based company Open Bionics, he said, "When I first saw the red design, I knew it was perfect. It matches my Santa suit perfectly." Very lovely. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Lots to get through. Packed hour coming up. Time to get down to business. Those are the words of former Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch as she was declared the new Conservative Party leader. She beat Robert Jenrick in the race among Tory members following a lengthy contest. Ms Badenoch received over 53,000 votes, while Mr Jenrick got 41,000. It comes almost 4 months after the Tories' general election defeat, which triggered former leader Rishi Sunak's resignation. Joining me now from outside the Conservative campaign headquarters is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, good afternoon. How's it going there? What's happening?
Well, Kemi Badenoch is inside the building now. There have been various of her supporters have gone in. I've seen Helen Whately, Andrew Bowie. She's expected to come out in a moment or two. It sounds as though she may well have been picking her shadow cabinet this afternoon, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see who she puts in that shadow cabinet. She has been very tight-lipped over the course of this really long Conservative leadership campaign, 14-week campaign over policy. She's run a campaign on vibes, people say, very little about what she'll actually actually do. So I think the first proper indication we'll get of what kind of a leader she will be is when she picks that shadow cabinet. It's going to be quite a tricky job for Kemi Badenoch running the Conservative Party. There are only 122 MPs at the moment. She was elected with about 56% of the vote. That's not nearly as decisive as Boris Johnson got in 2019, and actually turnout was pretty low as well among Conservative Party members, just over 72%. That's compared to 86% for Boris Johnson, 82% during the Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak leadership race. So this is a tough gig that Kemi Badenoch finds herself with. To make matters slightly easier for her, Bob Blackman, the chairman of the 1922 committee, announced today that the rules have changed over when a no confidence leadership election can be called. Let's hear a little more.
The executive agreed last week actually to increase the threshold to a third of the parliamentary party. So that changes the position considerably. And I hope there will be no need for a challenge, because we'll be doing so well. I'm pleased to say we're slightly ahead in the opinion polls for the first time for 3 years already. I hope that that will be, the momentum will build up so that Kemi can then ride on the crest of that wave.
So to be clear, 1/3 of Tory MPs is nearly double the threshold. You need 1/3 of Tory MPs to trigger a vote of no confidence in the new leader, Kemi Badenoch.
It's more than double, actually. It's a third. So it was 15%. It's now 33 1/3 plus 1. So from that perspective, I'm not expecting to see any problems in that regard. Ever, actually. I think we've got a great opportunity now to actually rebuild the trust, as I say, with the British people, get the parliamentary party working as one team. As you quite rightly say, my job is to make sure that the parliamentary party is listened to by Kemi, and make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction.
So I'm sure it'll become as a relief to Kemi Badenoch to hear that it now will take more than just 18 Conservative MPs to vote no confidence in her before she were to be removed from office. But hopefully for the Conservative Party, that won't be the sort of tenure that Kemi Badenoch has. It seems at the moment that the majority, well, pretty much every Conservative MP in the party is at least paying lip service to the idea that they must unite behind Kemi Badenoch. They simply don't have enough MPs to afford the sort of infighting that we've seen for the past, really, a decade or so. So it's a challenge for Kemi Badenoch, but hopefully for her, not an insurmountable one.
Brilliant, thank you very much. GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley there. Oh, choosing a shadow cabinet already. How interesting. OK, now joining me is former Conservative MP Neil Parish, who indeed did back Kemi Badenoch. Neil, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So your woman won. What difference do you think she's going to make?
I think Kemi is going to be quite controversial. I think also I actually like the idea that she hadn't put forward too many policies at this stage, because they only get rubbished by the government, and you've really got to actually attack the government and bring your policies out a bit later. I hope that she can now pull the party together and stop our scrapping and get on with it, because we've got to oppose this Labour government. I mean, I'm a farmer. I've just seen, you know, we've got inheritance tax on land. We had a very low profit on capital, about 1% in farming, and you're going to get rid of a lot of farming families. So lots of things going on, you know, the national insurance, all of these things, businesses being asked to pay too much. So the Conservative, you know, has got to pull itself together under Kemi and get to oppose this government, because they're not turning out as we thought they would. We thought they'd be a more moderate government, and they're turning out to be quite a socialist government. And I think Kemi's the one for the job.
Neil, I mean, there was a lot, you know, one of the reasons the Conservatives were voted out because of the infighting between them. And, you know, we were promised no more blue on blue attacks. But in the final stages of this leadership campaign, we did actually see quite a few personal attacks between Kemi and Robert Jenrick. Have they not learnt their lessons?
I hope they have. I think, you know, when the blood is up and the race is on, they're inclined to sort of go for the jugular, which is a shame. But I think now it is a case. I mean, in America, you know, you get the runoffs between the candidates, and they have a real go at each other, and they turn around and unite the Democrats and the Republicans. So it's time for the Conservative Party to put all of that behind us, get behind Kemi, and I think Kemi's going to be a very interesting leader, because I think she she will be controversial. I think with a politics which is becoming at the leadership rather bland, I think, and dare I say it, the Prime Minister not always the most interesting man in the world. I think Kemi will do the biz, and we got to try and pull together, because otherwise we're toast if we don't. I'll be quite blunt about it.
Neil, you did have you did in the end have two fairly right-wing contenders for the leadership. Do you think that's a good thing?
I think what I like about I think that the party has probably moved to the right slightly anyway. I think there is, there's no doubt that the elephant in the room is reform, and so therefore.
Oh, right. Okay, this is Kemi Badenoch, who is leaving the office of the Conservative Party after, we think, maybe having a conversation with some of those she wants to serve in her shadow cabinet with her. And we can just see her driving out now. She always said she would be hitting the ground running, and that does indeed seem to be the case if that's what she's doing. She's also said that she would be open to giving all of her rivals for the leadership battle a place on the shadow cabinet, because she does actually want to unite the party, which, as we were just discussing with Neil Parish, who backed Kemi, is the one thing they need to do, because I think one of the things that everyone was sick of was they were fighting so amongst one another when they should have been fighting for Labour. So do you think she will stick to her guns and appoint some of her rivals for the leadership campaign in her shadow cabinet?
Yes, I do, and I think she'd be very sensible to do that. Some really prominent roles, people like Mel Stride as well, probably, could be shadow chancellor, I would have thought. So there's some good talent there. James Cleverly, all of them there. Tom Tugendhat, as well as James Cleverly. So, there is some good talent there. I mean, Robert Jenrick, very, very able. She will need to pull it all together. They will need to get senior jobs, and then I think let's get on with, like I said, opposing Labour. And then, as a year or so, 2 years in, then I suggest we put forward the policies that will put this country right. Because while we left problems, I think Labour are just reinforcing the problems that are there, and there's going to be a huge debt crisis in the minute.
Neil, just very final one quick question. Do you think she'll be capable of giving Keir Starmer a good handbagging?
I do hope so. I think she's a very pleasant woman. I think she's very forthright. I think there's going to be one or two interesting moments in the House of Commons. I just hope that she will sort of gee it up a bit. That's the reason I voted for her. I think she's slightly more risky in some ways than Robert Jenrick, but I think she'll probably get more attention from the British public, which I think are rather fed up really with all the politicians saying the same thing. So I think Kemi will be hopefully a breath of fresh air. That's why I voted for her anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's Neil Parish, who did indeed back Kemi, and so his lady has got the role. Now, let's see what my panel make of this. Former Labour advisor Paul Richards and Heritage Party leader David Curtin. Paul, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Yeah. How do you think she will fare against Keir Starmer and the Labour Party?
Well, first of all, I congratulate her. It is a significant moment, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. It's significant also that the Conservative Party today is talking about how to avoid a leadership contest in the future after a no-confidence vote. I mean, this is on the very day, within hours of her election as leader, they're trying to fix the rules that they can't, so she can't be deposed. Why are they doing that, Dawn? It's because she's only got a third of the parliamentary party on her side. 2/3 voted against her. So it's like Corbyn in the Labour Party, where the membership want one thing, but the parliamentary party don't want the leader. And so I think we've basically stored up a whole heap of trouble, which is now going to just play out over the next 4 years. One last point on that. Isn't it interesting that I believe I'm hearing Cleverly saying he's not going to serve in the shadow cabinet? Now, I think...
we don't know. We haven't had anything confirmed yet.
Is that because he's biding his time? And is he probably more likely to be the person that Starmer faces at the next election than Kemi Badenoch?
Be interesting. She has got a while to go before anything, definitive happens. What do you make of her winning the race?
Well, I mean, I know Kemi. I like her. I used to sit next to her on the London Assembly in 2016 when I first got on there, and she was on there for a few months before she became an MP. So she's a very, very clever woman. She's very intelligent. She's very sharp. And I think she'll give Keir Starmer a run for his money at the dispatch box in Parliament. But the thing is here is, what are her policies? And that's what came out in the report, that it's good mood music for the Conservative Party, if you like, because she's from the right. She's more in tune with the members. But what are her policies? And there's three things that she needs to assert that she will do. One is get rid of this whole net zero nonsense, which the members don't want, the country doesn't want. She needs to control the borders, reduce migration. And the thing is, when she was Trade Secretary, she supported more legal visas for Indians and Pakistanis and so on to come to work here, to study here. So migration has gone up because of her policies in the past. That's not the right thing.
Do you think she's not as right-wing as people perceive her to be?
I don't think she is. I mean, she is perceived to be on the right, but she's not really as right-wing as she needs to be. I mean, certainly not good enough for me. You know, and but the other thing she needs to do, which she is fairly good on, is be anti-woke, you know, and to fight political correctness and wokery and all this transgender nonsense, transgenderism going into schools. And she's fairly good on that. But she can't just rest on that one thing. She's got to reduce migration. She's got to actually make a proper commitment to end the madness of net zero as well.
Paul, I mean, when we have a Prime Minister who does have trouble identifying what a woman actually is, he's now going to be up against an actual woman. Do you think David's right that we need to sort out some of this woke nonsense in politics?
If Kemi Badenoch wants to fight the next 4 years and then a general election on that set of issues, then good luck to her. You know, she was obviously the candidate that Labour wanted to win most. I mean, she's the one we fear the least, and we think, you know, get the popcorn in over the next 4 years. This is the one who's going to cause the most trouble for the Conservative Party. Well, I think Cleverly is a serious contender, but the gaming that went around the votes knocked him out unexpectedly. But you know, what does she stand for? We don't know. There's a range of dilemmas now the Conservative Party faces. Now there's a Labour budget in place. You know, are they going to reverse? Are they going to say they're going to reverse the, they're going to put the tax breaks back on the private schools, for example? Are they going to reverse things around the extra money going into the health service? So, you know, they've got to make some big economic policy choices now, and she travelled so light, it's very hard to tell quite, you know, what they stand for and what they believe. I mean, it's interesting, I think, that she does cut through. And my advice to Labour right now is to not underestimate her, because I think she is a smart cookie and she has got to where she's got to, and you don't get there without being pretty clever. But I just wonder, you know, you can cut through, you can get on, have I got news for you, you can do all the stuff in the Daily Mail, but does that shift enough votes to win an election? Probably not.
But the Conservative, according to the polls at the moment, the Conservative Party and even Rishi Sunak are more popular than Labour and more trusted financially.
Well, it depends which poll, because I've seen polls saying exactly the
opposite. Polls are polls, yeah, no, absolutely. But the majority of polls at the moment do seem...
early days, you know, I keep reminding everyone, we're only, 3 or 4 months in now into a new government, which may take 4 or 5 years in power, and we've only had one budget, and, you know, many laws have started to come through, but real change hasn't happened yet, and people haven't felt it yet. So I think it's very different to look at this in 4 years' time. And governments are unpopular. That's, I think, reflected in some of the by-election results in the councils, and maybe even in the by-election coming up, if there is one in Runcorn as well. But that's what happens to governments, isn't it?
It's much easier to be in opposition. You just point and go, well, we'd be better than that lot. But we have talked about a lot about Kemi being the right leader or the wrong leader, depending on your point of view, for the Conservative Party. Is Keir Starmer the right leader for the Labour Party?
Well, undoubtedly. I mean, the proof of the pudding is the fact he's just delivered the most astonishing landslide victory for Labour from absolute doldrums in 2019.
They won by default because the Conservatives lost about 7 million votes. Labour continued with 9 million votes. They didn't get any more votes than last time. So they didn't win because they were popular or exciting. They did win by default. And they have got a large majority. But the thing is, in the last 4 months...
You either win or lose, Dave.
They did. And it's actually because the Conservative Party tanked, because they were doing all the wrong things, and they have been doing for a very long time, and they lost their base.
I disagree.
So,
I think partly that is true, of course, but also you can praise Starmer's leadership around the way he repositioned the party, sorted out some of the policy mess, made a very firm stance on anti-Semitism, and actually put the party back in contention. That was
He's been an absolute disaster in the last four months since he's got in. I mean, he really mishandled everything to do with Southport, and now things are coming out about that. You know, obviously that's sub judice now, but people have seen that. I mean, he's been... The budget is terrible as well. We're going to come and talk about that later, I think, but the budget hammers everybody. So, you know, he's been a dreadful
use the National Health
Prime Minister to start with.
We are going to come on to that one. I can't wait to hear that debate between you, indeed. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website at gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more. As you've just heard, it's going to get fiery coming up on today's show. Leave those farmers alone. Elon Musk tells Sir Keir Starmer your tax rate on farmers is wrong. We'll have the latest from that and the mid-week budget fallout. It's going to get fiery. See you very soon. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Ed Barker, a talented saxophonist and clarinetist from London, has had a remarkable journey in the music industry marked by significant achievements and an unusual crossover into the political sphere. Having honed his musical skills from a young age, he played in both the National Youth Orchestra and the National Youth Jazz Orchestra. In 2012, he became the solo saxophonist for pop legend George Michael. His reputation in music opened doors in politics, where he's worked with various leading Conservative members of Parliament and played a role in a number of major campaigns. To tell us more about the harmonious relationship between music and politics, I'm delighted to be joined by Ed Barker. This is quite puzzling, actually. How did a reputation in music get you into politics?
It's a good question. It's probably a question I'm still wrestling with at the age of 40. How's it happened? But somehow I've managed to do both, and I still enjoy doing them both at a high level. I think it's a simple thing of, when you're in politics, you're known as the saxophone guy, and when you're in the saxophone music industry world, you're known as the weird conservative political guy. And so it's just something people can remember you by, regardless of how good you are at either of those two things. I think it's just a device that people can kind of just latch onto to remember you.
But it's the word weird, because I imagine that most people in the music industry are probably somewhat to the left. Yeah. Certainly all the ones that I've met are. I mean, I can't imagine you and George Michael discussing Tory politics with approval, or maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, I don't tend to talk politics with people kind of when I'm not in politics somehow. And whenever there are political disagreements, you know, people kind of, I think GB News actually gets closest to kind of embodying this spirit. People are very kind of up for learning from each other's kind of experiences and views and not biting each other's heads off.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you very much for your company this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Now, tech mogul Elon Musk has slammed Sir Keir Starmer for picking on farmers in the budget. Musk says he should leave farmers alone and branded the tax rate as wrong, adding extra pressure on the Treasury to U-turn. It comes as farmers organise a London rally later this month to challenge the government's plans. OK, let's see what the panel make of this one. It's going to get fiery, I know this one. former Labour advisor Paul Richards and Heritage Party leader David Curtin. I'm going to come to you first on this one, David. I mean, I find it a bit surreal that Elon Musk is even bothering to put out a tweet about farmers in East Anglia, but what do you make of that?
I think it's personal. It's personal now, because I think some people in the Labour government said they need to deal with Elon Musk and as him running X and allowing free speech that they don't like, and and also that goes with people in the Labour Party going over to campaign for Kamala Harris in the USA. So Labour are getting involved and interfering in the USA. So I think Elon Musk is thinking, well, I'm going to talk about what's happening in the UK as well. But actually, on this issue, he's absolutely right. I mean, what Labour has done in this inheritance tax rate on farmers is going to be absolutely disastrous for family farms that have been passed down through the generations. And for the first time, family farms are going to have to sell some of their land or all of their land to pay inheritance tax bills when someone dies. I mean, it's an absolutely horrible thing, and it's going to decimate the agricultural sector. And we need to realise you can't attack farmers like this. You've got to look after your farmers, otherwise we lose our food security, and we're even less self-sufficient in food than we are at the moment.
It does seem a bit weird, Paul, to pick on farmers when, our self-sufficient in fresh vegetables is the lowest since records began in 1988.
Let's unpack this. First of all, 3/4 of the farmers are unaffected, family farmers are unaffected. It's only the very richest. Some of those are the very richest landowners in the country who aren't really farmers at all, but they turned over some of their estate to farms for the tax break. So we're talking about some of the very richest people with the most assets who can afford a little bit extra to help fund our national health service. Elon Musk needs to butt out, I would say. I don't know why he's interfering in our election. He's doing a good job of interfering in the American election, but he's supposed to be a businessman, not a politician. So he needs to get out of the way. And also, I would say, if the militant farming organisations want to start disrupting the food supply, then I think the public will view that as a vested interest, stopping the food getting into the supermarket.
And the National Farmers Union have said that, a typical farm in England is 220 acres with a value of more than 2 million, and that's even before accounting for the equipment and the farm buildings. So these are just average farms, by families. They're not owned by rich landowners. These are just ordinary farms. The majority of them, 70,000 farms in England, are worth more than $1 million. They're not all
You're
landed
presenting it as though this
gentry.
is some sort of, Soviet, trying to collectivise the farms and drive them off the land. They're going to still have the farms. They're just going to have to pay a bit more tax to fund the National Health Service, which is what people voted for in July.
What if they can't afford to pay that tax? That means selling their land off and therefore decreasing what food they can produce.
I mean, it's only the ones valued over $1 million, I'm right in saying, I think.
Which is most farms in this country.
So that is a fairly significant asset, I think. Most people don't have £1 million worth of assets.
Well, it's not £1 million worth of cash just sitting there, is it? I mean, it's the land and the equipment.
Assets, and they can plan for this. And I think, it's not unreasonable to ask the very richest to donate a little bit more to make the country better for
David,
everybody.
would you say farmers are the very richest?
Well, no. I mean, they have assets here, but this is land. It's not liquid assets, so they can go to their bank account and say, oh, OK, I've got an inheritance tax bill, I'm going to take this out of my bank account and pay the government. This is actually going to destroy their business. And many, say 70,000 farms, a lot of them medium and obviously larger size farms, but they produce food. And this is going to decimate farms and farmers, and it's absolutely wrong. And the one thing also with this is that they said they weren't going to do this before they were elected, and then they've changed their mind in the budget and they put something in that they said they weren't going to do.
There is some early areas of the manifesto that haven't really been stuck to, isn't there, though, Paul?
Well, I think the problem was we came into government, we opened those books, and we'd been lied to about what the figures really were, and ministers had covered it up. That's why they went for an early election, so they couldn't have to face the realities that they created. And Rachel Reeves and Darren Jones and the rest just looked at these numbers and said, right, we need a really big budget to fix the foundations. It's a big tax hike, we were saying that, but it's to go into the health service, special educational needs, mending the potholes, putting more police on the streets, the things that people actually want. GB News viewers want those things. Many of them voted for it, and that's what this budget was all about, delivering on the promises.
A lot of the things that they said they're going to spend it on are not things that GB News viewers want. A lot of nonsense. £3 billion per year to Ukraine to keep that war going. Carbon capture and storage, which is absolute nonsense.
If we lose to the Russians... Then
no, we shouldn't be continuing and prolonging this war. We should be de-escalating, as I've said many, many times before.
How would you do that?
This is Well, we should not be sending £3 billion per year to the Zelensky regime and then us, destroying farms and farmers to actually fund that. That's absolutely wrong. We need to be looking after people in this country, workers and farmers and businesses, rather than taking money from them to send to Ukraine or to put into crazy net zero projects like carbon capture and hydrogen infrastructure, which isn't going to produce any extra energy for the country above what we would get from coal or oil or gas if we continue to use that.
Well, I'm horrified what you're saying about caving into Putin. I think that's absolutely outrageous. I think the most important institution in all of our lives right now is the Ukrainian army, and it has to win that war. Otherwise, our geopolitics will be shaped by the fact that dictators can march into other people's countries for the next 40 years.
Well, I mean, this is not actually the reality of the situation. The West actually instigated a coup in 2014 and put in a puppet because they wanted someone who would bring Ukraine into NATO and bring Ukraine into the EU. So this is what happened, and we shouldn't have been supporting an escalation of the war since 2022, under which 1 million people or more have died.
Good heavens, what an astonishing point of view.
We are getting slightly off topic here, but Paul, on the whole, you are happy with the way the Labour government are going in everything they've done so far?
On the night the election was, on the night of the budget, I did say to a political correspondent, if anyone deserves a pint of beer with a penny off, of course, it's Rachel Reeves, but who should be buying it? It should be Keir Starmer, because I think he's now got a governing project, a sort of narrative now about what this government is all about, which perhaps we didn't have as strongly before that point. So now we've got a series of policies, a clear direction, what we're all about, public services, etc., which I think will then sustain us over the next 4 years.
OK, I'm going to run out of time on that one, unfortunately. We shall see, shan't we? Thank you very much. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GBNews. Lots more coming up on today's show. It's neck and neck in those key swing states across the pond. Just who will come out on top as Americans prepare to elect a new president? That and much more to come after your latest news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's 2:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. Now, Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party after defeating Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She is the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said that the Tories have to be honest about the fact they had made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
6 teenagers have been arrested after a 13-year-old girl has been found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police have said that she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. To Spain now, where rescue teams are continuing to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Crews are continuing to search for bodies in stranded cars and buildings following the flash floods, as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. With dozens of people still missing, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has declared the area a disaster zone. The Spanish government has now confirmed 211 deaths so far. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. The wonderful Tatiana Sanchez will be with you in just under half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Most of us do have a calm weekend ahead of us, and that is because high pressure is sat across the UK, bringing light winds for most of us, but where those isobars are a little bit closer together across the southwest, but particularly in the northwest as well, we could see a little stronger of a breeze, gusts of around 30 to 35 miles an hour along some northern coastal areas of Scotland. With high pressure, though, it means that it's going to be largely dry. A few spots of drizzle around, but there certainly is plenty of cloud right across the UK, bringing relatively grey skies. Temperatures underneath all of that are actually a couple of degrees above where we'd expect them to be for the time of year, generally ranging between 13 and 15 degrees Celsius. If you do have any bonfire night celebrations planned for this evening, then most of us are looking to stay relatively dry. Can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, again, particularly around some higher ground sites just to watch out for, and certainly the skies are going to be very cloudy right throughout the evening for many of us. A bit misty and murky, again, particularly over the tops of the hills, but we might start to see a few clearer spells developing across northeastern areas of Scotland, and these part of the UK is likely to hold on to that as we head throughout much of the evening and overnight as well. So underneath those clearing skies, we could see temperatures drop down a bit more here, maybe even some patchy frost developing in rural spots across parts of Murray and Aberdeenshire. But elsewhere underneath that cloud, it certainly is going to be quite a mild night. Temperatures in many of our towns and cities holding up around 10 degrees Celsius. On Sunday, we pretty much do it all over again. There's going to be a lot of cloud around once again. The best of any brightness or sunshine likely to be for the northeastern areas of Scotland, maybe just filtering its way into other parts of northern and eastern England on the odd occasion as well. Most of us dry again, but still just watch out for that drizzle in there. Temperatures down by a degree or so, generally around 12, 13 degrees Celsius. Is there any sign of things to change? Well, not really. It is going to be staying pretty cloudy, but as we head towards Wednesday, it will also be turning a little bit milder.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Newsroom. Now, there's plenty more coming up on today's absolutely packed show. But first, Nana Akua has joined us in the studio, and her show starts at 3 o'clock. Nana, it's always a humdinger. What have you got for us this afternoon?
Well, of course, we're going to talk about the leadership contest between the Tory party members. And, of course, Kemi Badenoch, fantastic news. People are saying she's the first black female. Who cares? I mean, these are just simply facts. It is a good thing that we have a diverse mix of politicians, but the question we really want to know is, will she be any good at the job? Can she unite the party? So we're talking about that. Also looking at the policies, the latest budget will be dissecting that. Elliot Keck will be joining us live to have a look at that, and in particular the impact that it will have on the farmers. And I'm asking, will the Labour Party and the Labour government destroy farming in this country with policies like that? You've been talking about Elon Musk as well. We'll be talking about that too. Plus, in the studio, difficult conversations. I'm going to have the PR media person for education and not taxation. They are a pressure group asking the government to reverse the changes for VAT on private schools. But we've got loads to get through. It's going to be fun.
That's a packed show. It sounds like it'll be a fiery one as well. Thank you very much. That's Nana, who's up at 3 o'clock straight after this show. Now, we have just 3 days to go before Americans vote for their next president, and a brand new YouGov study has revealed that Kamala Harris is the preferred candidate over Donald Trump among 7 Western European countries. The poll shows that in Britain, 61% favour Harris over Trump. Interesting. Let's see what my panel make of this one. I'm joined by former Labour advisor Paul Richards and Heritage Party leader David Curtin. Are you surprised by that poll finding? I know we always say polls are polls and everything changes, but are you surprised by that?
This is a very bizarre poll showing that there's a big majority in the UK for Kamala Harris. I don't know, but...
We've got Elon Musk trying to run our farms, so, I mean, anything's possible.
I think it would be more equal. I thought it would be something more like 50-50 in the UK. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter because it's Americans who are going to vote on this. And I think there are various polls in the USA. Some show Trump is ahead, some show Kamala's ahead. But we're 3 days out, and I think what they're trying to do, actually, at the moment is keep people interested and show that, oh, it's neck and neck, you all need to get out and vote. We're not going to know the result until the end of the day, you know, on Tuesday, until the results come in. So if you have polls showing that there is a big advantage for one candidate, people might get complacent and they might lose interest. But I actually think I don't trust many polls today. I think they're a tool of manipulation and to get people like to think a certain way. And what they're trying to do at the moment is keep people interested.
Who would you like to see win?
President Trump, absolutely, 100%.
I kind of thought you might say that. And Paul, I'm thinking you probably don't want President Trump.
Yeah, shock news. But, that's
breaking news here, folks.
Yeah. I mean, I agree on the polls. I think that in every election they get it a bit wrong and then they have to recalibrate and say sorry, and then we go into the next election talking about the polls. But I just, you don't know. Isn't it interesting though that a country of that many millions and all of the billions that have been spent on this, and it's absolute stalemate 3 days out. It hasn't shifted the ground either way, and I don't think we're going to find out on the day of the election. I suspect there'll be legal cases and drawn out terrible, constitutional wrangles and rows for weeks.
It's just quite similar, Paul, I'm asking you because you're the Labour man here. It's just quite similar to our election where it's like you're voting against someone rather than voting for someone. I mean, even you as Labour, you've got to be honest, a lot of people did vote to get the Tories out rather than vote for Labour.
Well, totally, that's what they did. I mean, that's certainly true in lots of parts of the country. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think Kamala has got her supporters and they like her policies. There's a lot of people who are, as we know, Trump is Marmite. You love him or you hate him, so there's people voting against Trump. And so it's very divided, but it just shows what an incredible divided society America is, how different it is. They speak the same language as us, but they are a foreign country, and we have to sort of remember that. And their system is so different as well.
It is actually quite a complicated system as to who wins which state, etc., and how the voting is working out, which gives Trump.
Well, you can win the election on the popular vote, can't you? And then lose, which you can here too, of course, technically. But it is just it's a very odd way to settle such a big question, isn't it?
But it's also having a vote for your head of state as well, which is something we don't have in this country. You're voting for a person, not a party.
Not yet.
That's a whole other issue there. Yeah, I know, but I actually think it's very exciting because a lot of groups in general that did vote Democrat are now breaking for Trump. Black men in particular, Hispanics that traditionally voted Democrat are now changing because they don't like what they've seen Biden and Harris been doing over the last 4 years and are hoping for an economic recovery again under Trump. So that's a very interesting factor, and that could be the main factor that swings it.
And it's also, the assumptions that underpin that are all over the place, aren't they? Now, the idea that certain ethnic groups are going to vote for certain parties. See that in this country too, by the way. People are not, they're not going through the playbook as they should, and they're behaving in different ways, and that's a good thing, of course. I don't think anyone should own a vote, and people should make their minds up. But you are seeing this election in America in very large degree.
I mean, there was a comment piece in the Times, I think it is today, saying, the country that gave us world leaders like Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan are now reduced to Trump and Kamala Harris. Is that a sentiment you agree with?
It does feel, mind you, we look back on the greats, don't we? We forget all the duds along the way that we couldn't even probably know.
Trump is a great. Trump is a great. That's the thing. Trying to denigrate Trump by comparing him unfavourably to some of these people, I don't think that's right. I think he's fantastic. He's very intelligent, and he's going to put America back on the map again. He's going to do what he says, make America great again.
You think he will win?
Yeah, I think he will win, and I think he will do what he says. And, I don't agree with absolutely everything. Of course, you don't agree with absolutely everything from anyone, but but he's going to bring jobs back to America. He's going to get rid of this net zero stuff, drill baby drill, as he says. He's against the woke agenda. He's going to get transgenderism out of schools, out of the military. You're not going to see any of these military adverts with men dressing up in dresses and eyelashes and stuff like that. You know, he's going to be like strong men in the military again.
I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly, it's so close to call, and I don't believe the polls. We'll just find out when we find out, won't we?
OK. Thank you very much. A wonderful panel today. I hope you agree. David Curtin and Paul Richards. Very great debate. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. An updated biography of King Charles reveals the Duke of York's £1 million a year allowance and 7-figure private security detail have been slashed. Curious. All that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camila Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a lovely Saturday afternoon out there. Now, we have to talk royals, don't we? Because there is a new story about Prince Andrew. He's officially been cut off by the King. An updated biography of King Charles reveals that the Duke of York's £1 million a year allowance and 7-figure private security detail have been slashed. It follows endless calls for the royal family to sever financial ties with Prince Andrew after his disastrous BBC interview back in 2019. Joining me now is royal commentator, wonderful person, Rafe Heldermanko. Rafe, thank you very much for joining. Looking forward to our chat about the royals. Now, this is an updated book, so there's some new exciting stuff, but it's Prince Andrew.
Yes,
it's the main line.
It seems as if the King has finally reached the end of his tether in what's been called the siege of the Royal Lodge.
and given Prince Andrew an ultimatum, pay up or pack up, essentially. Now, this hasn't been confirmed by the royal household, but, Robert Hardman, a very trustworthy biographer and journalist with impeccable sources. And we've known for a while, actually, that the King's payment of security for Prince Andrew, which is £3 million a year, the contract came up for renewal around this time of year, and it was always clear it wasn't going to be renewed. So the King essentially has said, look, downsize, come into the Frogmore Cottage, vacated by Harry and Meghan, because that's actually within the physical existing security
And it's not exactly a hovel, is it?
It's 5 bedrooms as opposed to 10 bedrooms. It's a hard life, isn't it?
Yes.
But the point is, actually, it falls within the existing security detail of the royal family, so there wouldn't need to be any of that outlay. Now, Prince Andrew says, look, I've got a 50-year lease on Royal Lodge. I spent £7.5 million refurbishing it, so I have every right to stay here. But the King says, fine, you find the money. I'm not going to be paying you any of that allowance, but if you do want an allowance, do go to Frogmore Cottage. That's the standoff. Prince Andrew now claims, actually, that he does have some sources of income from overseas, which, of course, raises his own questions as to where that money's coming from and why they would want to pay that sort of money.
That's what got him into this trouble in the first place, isn't it? Some of these friends with loads of money.
So we just have to wait and see, actually, what happens along those lines.
I think people were surprised that he was getting that much from his brother, £1 million a year.
£1 million allowance plus £3 million securities. That's £4 million a year. It's important to say that the King isn't being punitive here. This is not about punishing the Duke. It's simply about financial pragmatism. How can you defend and justify paying £3 million security when, if he moved, security would be free of charge for him within the confines of the royal household?
It's also mentioned in the book that this is something the Queen would have done herself had she lived, obviously, a bit longer.
So we've always known, of course, that Prince Andrew apparently was Her Majesty's favourite and that she was reluctant to in any way hurt him or be seen to be punishing. But apparently, again, senior sources say, had Her Majesty lived for another year, she herself would have had a showdown with her son and forced him to vacate the Royal Lodge for Frogmore Cottage. So whether that's true or not, we don't know, but it seems as if it was.
Yeah. What is it with the royal family and brothers, Rafe? I mean, we've got, obviously, Charles and Andrew, who have now not exactly a lot of brotherly love, I'm assuming, going on there, and, obviously, Harry and William. Harry's also mentioned in this updated book, isn't he?
Well, yes, Prince Harry is mentioned as well. The King apparently has said he's very open to a rapprochement, but the Sussexes aren't making it easy for them. He's also worried if he does repair his relationship with Prince Harry, that he'll be dragged into Prince Harry's court case with the Home Office over security. And, of course, the King can't get involved with his own government, His Majesty's government, after all. And, of course, a firm denial that Meghan was in any way, wasn't helped at all. They say, look, we helped Meghan all the way, but it was Meghan who actually rebuffed the help offered to them by the royal household. But as you say, the heir and the spare, it's an age-old story of rivalries and enmities, and this certainly won't be the last time we see such rivalries, I suspect. Do
you think there ever will be, a reunion between William and Harry?
I think William and Harry, that's something which is in the far long reads in the future. The King and Prince Harry, another story. The King is a good father, a Christian father, and I think he's hoping for that prodigal son moment when Prince Harry returns home, apologises, and they have some sort of reunification.
Brilliant, Rafe. Thank you very much. Wonderful as always. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the show. Certainly enjoyed your company. Don't go anywhere, though. Nana is up next with a very fiery show for you, and at 6 o'clock it's a Saturday 5. But first, it's the weather with Jonathan Voltry.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. During the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine